ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਤੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. Um, I am currently today we are going to do a very special presentation um, on the recent press briefing being given by Indian Armed Forces on the air battle or the mini war they have been having with Pakistan for last, I would say, 3 to 4 days. So we're going to talk about that particular presentation. Just yesterday, I analyzed the presentation given by the Pakistani side, the Pakistani armed forces. That presentation, was very popular. I saw a lot of interest from people in hearing, about the detailed technical aspects of how the air battle panned out. So I thought it might be of interest to people also, wherein I analyze the information that has been shared by the Indian side. So, just to give you a background, why I am doing this, I am an Indian Air Force veteran. I worked primarily in the air defense branch of the Indian Air Force. So, this thing is right up my alley because we've had probably one of the most historic and the biggest air battles in modern human history, where we had 125 different aircraft, most modern aircraft with all different. Sorry, I was on mute while I was speaking on live stream, so I'll kind of just unmute myself. Okay, Navi was kind of big, so let me also try to get some co-hosts while we are going here, and I'm going to send some co-host invites. People who can accept it, please do accept it, and I'm simultaneously live streaming as well as we have this Twitter space which is open. Okay, so and I see Hafiz Saab in the audience. I am humbled, Hafiz Saab, that you have decided to come back to my space. Thank you so much. Okay, so from. Let's restart this discussion. So today's presentation, I am going to analyze the press briefing given by the Indian Armed Forces. I'm a veteran of Indian Armed Forces, a third generation veteran. I was in the Air Force, worked in the Air Defense branch of the Indian Air Force. So this air battle is right up my alley. India and Pakistan have very recently, just 2 or 3 days back, had the most historic air battle in modern aviation history, wherein we had 125 aircraft combined from both sides in a very saturated airspace in BVR, electronic warfare, you name it, multi-domain combat kind of a situation, who slugged it out for almost more than 60 minutes in a battle in which every cutting edge weapon system that is available in the world today, whether it's the Russian S-400, French Rafales, French Mika missiles, or the Chinese cutting edge systems like their AD systems, their AEW platforms, and their PL-15 missiles, which are the latest air-to-air missiles, they were up against each other. The Pakistanis were primarily armed by the Chinese armament, and the Indian side was primarily using a bunch of different arms, primarily Western, with the French Rafale being the foremost. Then they had Israeli sensors, Israeli AEW platforms, some Israeli air to ground to air defense missiles, and then some Russian equipment as well. So it's a very, very interesting piece of aviation history of a modern battle, which will be analyzed and which will be taught for many decades to come. Yesterday, I analyzed the Pakistani presentation. Very professional presentation. It generated a lot of interest among people. I personally, being an Indian Air Force veteran, was very impressed by the performance of Pakistani Air Force, their competence, professionalism, and also the equipment that they have on hand. So while that is there, I think many of us, including myself, were surprised by the gap between the technological and as well as human capability between Pakistani Air Force, a much smaller Air Force, versus the Indian Air Force, which is multiple times larger than the Pakistani Air Force. So I think many defense analysts are right now scratching their head, trying to figure out how did this happen? How did this small country like Pakistan, with very limited aircraft, with very limited platforms, was able to deter, not only deter, they achieved air superiority against a much larger force, which almost had unlimited resources at its hand. So, I think I'm in a unique place because I have the Indian Air Force background. I'm currently an American, so I'm not kind of chained by the overall kind of what you call the nature of Indian regime to clamp down on people who speak the truth. So I can speak relatively freely, and that is why I thought the world, as it is trying to figure out why did the Indian Air Force perform so poorly, I think I might have some information to add. I think I might be able to share some in-depth knowledge of my understanding of what happened to the Indian Air Force and why they came so short in this skirmish. But let's not assume stuff. Let's look at the data dispassionately, the presentation dispassionately. You might find me that I'm being a bit more critical of the Indian side and their competence and their systems. But please bear in mind, I'm a third generation veteran of Indian Armed Forces. While I have a grudge against the Indian state, I'm a Sikh dissident who wants successionism from India for the self right to self determination for Sikhs in India. At the same time, I have affinity for the Indian Armed Forces as well as the Armed Forces of Pakistan because they both are cut from the same cloth. But from a military standpoint, I think it's important to understand what happened to the Indian Armed Forces, why they are in such a situation, and I think in understanding that, we might understand something about the Indian state and why the overall Indian state is also in that condition. It's a deep problem and not just a problem of lack of buying equipment or bureaucracy. And as we go through the presentation, hopefully I will be able to touch upon some surface aspects, also some deeper aspects that I'll comment on. And hopefully they are of help to people who are trying to analyze and make sense of this situation. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to start sharing this press conference. This is the Director General Military Operations briefing by the Indians. So let me just, okay, here it is.
However, for those who were not here yesterday, let me introduce you to them. In the middle, we have Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, Director General Air Operations, who will provide insights on the air domain. To his right is Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, Director General Military Operations. He will cover the land aspects. And to my immediate right is Vice.
I'm going to pause a bit. If somebody can check if the people in the live stream can get the sound, I think that'll be super helpful. Rich, if you can check the live stream if it is getting the sound and give me a thumbs up or a message, I'll really appreciate that.
It's coming. It's
It's
fine,
coming.
Harjeet.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So as you
If
start,
anybody has a problem in the audience, just raise your hand, please.
yeah, as you can, just one sec. I'm gonna just there's certain pop-ups coming up. I'm gonna just block them before we go further, just to make sure we are not disturbed in the middle of the presentation. Okay, perfect. So so let's just quickly look at one thing, okay? Before, as they started the presentation, as you can see, let's analyze the setup, okay, and compare it to the Pakistani presentation. Here we have four officers. We don't know their ranks. I see, yeah, there's something they have a name tag. There's a major general who starts the presentation. We don't know why we have four of them. Like maybe what is the fourth guy doing first? That kind of stands out to me. Is he there just to introduce? Okay, if he's there just to introduce, what purpose is he serving in that whole introduction? The other officers should be able to introduce themselves. So just off the bat, okay, this presentation looks very odd to me. Doesn't fit in. Especially it does not fit in because on the Pakistani side, every single day, the people who came out to give the presentations were very senior officers, generals, air marshals, and it was the same bunch of people who were briefing. Obviously, they were also very closely involved with operations. But on the Indian side, first couple of days we had a bureaucrat who came with two very junior officers who were given a prepared script, lady officers who had no idea of what is going on, and they were just made to kind of read a script, like almost like showpieces. And and the moment the battle went bad, when the world started realizing that India had losses, and that probably India had lost many aircraft, and it became apparent, the bureaucrat just vanishes. And one fine day, we just have these four generals who are obviously scapegoats because the bureaucrat who thought this is going to be a very, very successful operation, we have such a huge army and we are going to rub the Pakistan's nose, he now realizes, oh my God, this is an embarrassment. So he conveniently unplugs himself out of that duty, gives no explanation that why for 6 days we had him along with two lady officers, and today we have four generals sitting here. What changed? No explanation. And I can tell you the explanation is simple as that. The world started reporting, many of the international media, credible media, started reporting. And once India had to ask for ceasefire from its on its own, it was clear that India had lost the battle. So, just one sec, somebody's asking for my help. So, just one sec. It's just difficult. My son keeps asking me for some extra time on this video game, which I have to approve. Okay, hopefully that satisfies him. Okay, so here we have. So this itself should tell you something. Okay, that the who is the power center in the Indian establishment? It is the bureaucrat. Not the generals are basically powerless. They can be made scapegoats and embarrassed in front of the whole international audience, um, like just at the top of the hat. They have no say in this. Okay, so then there are four of them here. No explanation what the fourth gentleman is doing. Let's continue.
Vice Admiral A.N. Pramod, the Director General Naval Operations. Following these briefings, we will be having a few question and answers. May I now request the DG Air Operations to commence the proceedings.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, we had a detailed brief on the successful joint operations that were carried out to destroy the terror infrastructure in Pakistan.
Okay, another thing you notice. Okay, look at this officer from the Air Force. He's wearing an overall, a dangri, which is basically a flying suit when you wear when you have to go out flying. But you have to ask, what is an air marshal doing wearing this in a press briefing? He should be in a proper dress. This is not an appropriate dress for when you go out in front of in front of the international press. It's not that he is flying. It's not that he is going to take an aircraft up in the flying. If he, what message is he trying to give? It's very kind of honestly, it's shabby to say the least. If you saw on the Pakistani side, the air marshal who came to give the briefing, he wear the proper dress that was appropriate for that occasion. He was not there flying aircraft to kind of to bomb the Indian side. So that in itself kind of tells you this lackluster attitude. Honestly, if I'm looking at it, and any international team is looking at it, why is this air marshal coming in the tangri while the other guys are kind of they are in their battle fatigues? That's fine, but this is not a battle fatigue. This is a specific dress. Air Force has a battle fatigue, and he can wear that battle fatigue. But what is he doing wearing this? This dress is supposed to be worn only when you are flying the aircraft. So, just a small tidbit to you guys, okay?
Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir as well as in Pakistan itself. We also iterated that our fight was with terrorists and their support infrastructure and not with Pakistan military. However, it is a pity that the Pakistan military chose to intervene and bat for the terrorist, which compelled us to respond in kind.
Okay. So, see, he starts off this at a very hypocritical kind of a back foot. Okay. So, this statement is so illogical to make at such a stage where he's saying, look, we started off bombing some civilian targets which we declared are terrorist hubs, which nobody internationally has agreed to. Nobody is claiming that they agree with India's assertion that a so and so mosque right in the middle of Bahawalpur town is, a terrorist hub. And so you might have a list. And so you bombed the civilian targets within Pakistan, their major cities. And then he's saying, I didn't expect, Pakistani military to respond. So what did you expect? Like, what is the statement for? It sounds like it's kind of, trying to look deliberately naive. It doesn't behoove a soldier. Like you could have said, we hit our targets, which we thought, and as expected, the Pakistani Air Force and Navy responded. That's what the expectation was. Him saying, "Oh, it's unfortunate they expanded." It's like a political talk, not like a defense personal talk, right? So
दोस्तों, हमारी लड़ाई आतंकवाद और आतंकवादियों के खिलाफ
okay, now he switches to another language without informing anyone why he's switching. But anyways, let's see how long that lasts.
थी। इसलिए 7 मई को हमने केवल आतंकवादी ठिकानों पर ही हमला किया था। पर अफसोस इस बात का है कि पाकिस्तानी सेना ने आतंकवादियों का साथ देना उचित समझा और इस लड़ाई को अपनी लड़ाई बना ली। इस परिस्थिति में हमारी जवाबी कार्यवाही अत्यंत आवश्यक थी और इसमें उनका जो भी नुकसान हुआ वे खुद इसके लिए जिम्मेदार हैं। हमारी तरफ से हमारी एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम्स देश के लिए दीवार की तरह खड़ी थी और इसको भेदना दुश्मन के लिए नामुमकिन था। This brings me to the point.
Okay, he kind of lets the cat out of the bag a bit. Okay, he says our air defense systems were like a wall, and it was impossible for Pakistan to penetrate it. He is right. The Indians had the S-400 air defense systems, the number one air defense system supposedly on paper, and it was impossible for the Pakistanis to penetrate it. But he does not say the Pakistanis could not penetrate because of us. He says they should not have. You see, like the it's kind of what we call a faux pas in military terminology. The truth kind of comes out because it's so difficult to kind of say the lie. Okay, so he's saying it was difficult, it was impossible for Pakistan to penetrate, but he never says that the Pakistan was not able to penetrate.
How have Indian forces managed to minimize the damage to both civilian and military infra?
Okay, now this statement itself is contradicting his earlier statement that it was impossible for them to penetrate. And now he's saying, how were we able to minimize the damage? Okay, you see how like in the very next sentence, he's kind of contradicting himself.
In the country, in spite of the unrelenting efforts by the Pakistani forces. Most of you and the majority populace within the country have had a lot to say about the layered and integrated air defense systems put in place by the Indian Armed Forces, which includes the assets of the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, in addition to the primary air defense assets of the Indian Air Force. As you all are well aware, this robust AD system comprises of a large variety of multi-layered AD sensors and weapon systems, from point defense weapons like the low-level air defense guns, shoulder-fired manpads, and short-range surface-to-air missiles.
Okay, I'm going to just take it back a bit and try to show you what he's trying to say here.
efforts by the Pakistani forces. Most of you and the majority populace within the country have had a lot to say about the layered and integrated air defense systems put in place by the Indian Armed Forces, which includes the assets of the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, in addition to the primary air defense assets of the Indian Air Force. As you all are well aware, this robust AD system comprises of a large variety of multi-layered AD sensors and weapon systems.
Okay, so he basically makes a shabbily prepared PowerPoint presentation, which literally has no information. Okay, it has no data, no information. A class 10th standard student can probably make a better PowerPoint than this. That's my first impression. So what he's trying to sell is he's trying to show no information about what kind of sensors we had. He's basically just showing you kind of, okay, we had this. You could think of all this like out of your common sense. Okay, so on long range we have these, missiles coming. So we have sensors kind of covering who will be intercepted. It's kind of an interception envelope he's showing with these yellow kind of curves. Point deliveries through aircraft, and then medium range aircraft, and then the short range. They have some other defense system. What these three lines are showing, yellow lines, is showing like the range of the long range weapon, and the medium range weapons, and the short range weapons. Okay, then he's saying the long range weapons are missiles, interceptors. The medium range, short range weapons are AD guns, man pads. Yeah, nothing great. Like we all know all this. This is common sense. This is YouTube knowledge in today's world. Like there's no information on this slide. Totally useless, too, if you ask me.
From point defense weapons like the low level air defense guns, shoulder fired manpads, and short range surface to air missiles or SAMs, to area defense weapons like the air defense fighters and longer range surface to air missiles within our inventory. Additionally, the numerous waves of drones and unmanned combat area vehicles employed by Pakistan were also thwarted by the indigenously developed soft and hard kill counter US systems and the well trained Indian air defense personnel.
Okay, so here he's saying that we countered many of the drones that were coming from the Pakistani side through both soft and hard kill. What he does not tell us is what is the percentage ratio that they were able to thwart. If you saw the Pakistani side, they're saying majorly their first use was of the soft kill, and very rarely did they use the hard kill for the drones, because you don't want to waste an expensive missile for a drone, which are like depending upon what type of drone is coming in. So, so as you will see as we'll go through the presentation, and I bring in some of the data elements that the Pakistanis were sharing, it seems that this soft kill kind of capability that he is showing here didn't work out as it was supposed to be, and maybe because it was indigenously developed, as he points out, that most of their soft kill tools were indigenously developed, so maybe they were not of that quality which could actually take out the drones. So they eventually had to fire missiles at it, which is a hard kill, and that is probably the reason I was in different Indian spaces today, and they were saying, why is Pakistan still sending drones while there is a ceasefire? And the reason is obvious. If India does not have soft kill capability, then and they are shooting missiles at the drones, then Pakistanis will keep sending drones because it's a low level threshold, and make Indians fire missiles at their $300 drone. The Indians are basically fighting like $1 million missile at a $300 drone. So they will keep doing it, until Indians figure out what is the right way to handle a soft kill for drones. So let's go back to the presentation.
All this was brought together as an efficient and effective AD environment by the integrated air command and control system.
Okay, perfect. Like this is where my profession is. You see, this is where I used to work. What you see is an operation center, or what I this most probably is the Barnala one, or maybe a different one, integrated command and control center. So you see on the background, these are the people who are there. They're from the AD branch, and then and then you see in the background they have the air picture. Okay, so they're constantly monitoring the airspace of India, and you see the picture on the left hand side, which is black. What you see, these yellow lines, these kind of lines, straight geometrical lines cutting left and right. These are what we call ATS routes. So they are always also monitoring the civil traffic. Okay, so the civil traffic is always moving on. These are like the highways in the air. So all the civil traffic moves in the ATS route. It is around 20 nautical miles wide, and they're supposed to stay inside. So these are routes. The actual aircraft are less, but they constantly monitor it, and that picture you can see in the back end. And and you'll see when we go into the Pakistani presentation how their ops rooms looks like. There's a big difference, okay, and it kind of tells you almost a difference in approach and professionalism, and their kind of approach to this entire idea of air defense. And we'll talk about that finer points, but this is India's topmost integrated command and control ops room, if you want to call it that. It looks almost very similar to what I left when I left in 2008. I don't see much improvement actually having been done, which is not great.
Or the ISCCS of the Indian Air Force, which accords us the net-centric operational capability which is vital to modern days warfighting. While much has been said and written about the newer systems, I would like to place on record the performance and efficacy demonstrated by even the older battle-proven AD systems like the Pechora, the OSA AK, and the LLAD.
Okay. Okay, so you see what's going on. Yeah, he's saying that he's kind of admitting that our air defense is a mix and match of old systems and new systems, different countries, and he's saying, oh yeah, the new systems. Much has been said, but actually our old systems probably perform better than the new system. So I don't know why he's saying that statement. It's a very odd statement to make. Like why he's making a distinction between Indian Air Force's old systems and Indian Air Force's new systems. And maybe it's kind of a slight jibe at the fact that the new systems which India got, the Indian Air Force got, so called indigenously developed, are probably even worse than what their centuries or decades old systems, Russian systems that they have. I don't know why he brought it up, whether he meant the old systems were better or whether he meant that yeah, but yeah, it's kind of very odd he talks about it, which tells me that there is still this issue of integration of defense systems within Indian Air Force, and that integration is not complete, not synergistic, leave alone Indian Air Force having integrated with Army and Navy within Air Force itself. To me, it's obvious that their systems are not well integrated.
Guns in countering the Pakistani threat vectors in the current operations. They were all modern generations, but these battle-proven systems stood the test of time and took them on head-on. Another highlight has been the stellar performance of the indigenous air defense weapon system like the Akash system. Here, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention that putting together an operationalization of this potent AD environment.
So again, he says stellar performance by Akash system, but what does stellar mean here? Like he doesn't mention Akash brought down these many aircraft or these many drones or these many missiles. It's just basically a claim laid out there without honestly any data to back it or any information that we can go and kind of poke a little bit into.
Has been possible over the last decade due to unwavering.
And so I stopped it, and I think it's kind of shown probably just to pamper the ego of India's supreme leader, Mr. Modi, because indigenous systems are doing so well. How well, we don't know that. We just need to just believe them. They did very well.
Unwavering budgetary and policy support provided by the Government of India in acquiring state-of-the-art equipment and weapon systems. Some of the results achieved in countering the enemy threat vectors over the last week.
You see that particular line that I want to thank the government of India for approving my budgetary ye wo for so that we acquired state of the art system. You see who added that line? I can tell you right now. The bureaucrats made him add that line because the Indian Air Force got exposed for lack of integration and equipment, so the blame was going to fall on the supreme leader. So they make the poor air marshal go out and say, "Oh, thank you so much, the supreme leader. You gave us everything. You gave us, all the budgetary support and everything. Look, all the state of the art equipment." And then in the next sentence, he says, "Oh, yes, state of the art is good, but our old system also performed very well." Again, like it's just such a simple way give away. It looks so bad, and I feel bad for these generals and air marshals.
are now being shown on the screen. Shown on the screen is a probable enemy PL-15 missile, which is of Chinese origin. This missile has missed its target, and you can see the pieces now which are available with us.
Okay, again, like, what is this data? Okay, and I'm like, okay, he's saying this is, you see this image, probable, probable, not PL-15. It's probably PL-15. Okay, like you don't have the capability to tell me it's PL-15 or CL-15 or GL-15. Like, what are you talking about here, Marshall? It's a full piece of missile in your custody. Which missile is this? Tell me it's PL-15. And he's right. He's using the word probable because probably this poor chap does not know. He can't be sure because the Indian government has been lying so much. Maybe some bureaucrat sent him this. This is what PL-15 is. Air Marshal, go there and say this is PL-15. And the Air Marshal is thinking, what the hell, man? What if this is not a PL-15? And so he goes, probable PL-15 missile. And then he doesn't say that we intercepted it, okay? He's saying we have this PL. Yes, you will have pieces of PL-15. What else are you going to have? Because they fired PL-15s at you. They're going to land in your job. What are you saying? They fired at us and they basically reached us. I didn't know what was this piece of data. It's stupid to kind of, like, if you bought down, yeah, I don't know like what to say. You guys are intelligent enough. Like, get the drift.
Another weapon system or weapon which was found was the long range rocket, the pieces of which you can now see on the screen.
Okay, you see the heading on this? Likely long range rockets. Like, you don't know which rocket is this? A full rocket. You see that? You could see the fin. You could see the burner, everything. But what he's admitting here is their ignorance in identifying what is this. They have no clue, and he's saying it's a likely long range rockets. Pathetic, honestly, to ask me.
We have talked about the loiter munitions and the unmanned aerial systems, and here are some of the glimpses of those systems which we have brought down.
Okay, so he says we bought down, so that's good. He's saying these are the ones we bought down, and you see one of them is a DJI drone out here. So the Pakistanis were sending DJI drones, and then probably the Indians were shooting missiles at them. $1 million missile at a as a $200 drone, and yeah, so yeah, there's nothing special in this what they're showing. These are just drones, yeah, like very cheap kind of drones, and which you should expect to fall on the other side.
To your right, with the right undercarriage or the wheel, you can see is the Yiha system, which is of Chinese origin with Pakistan.
Yeah, is Chinese? I don't think so. If somebody can Google, I don't think Iha is a Chinese, but we'll see what goes on. So he's saying this is some another Yiha system that we got.
You can see some quadcopters and you can see one odd Sonka drone hanging by the wire. All these have been brought down by our trained crew and air defense systems.
Okay, again, here he does not mention soft kill. He says air defense systems. Now, if they fired missiles at these drones, these cheap drones, that's a stupidity. That's basically showing lack of operational readiness and ability to kind of understand the level of threat and using commensurate mechanism. Basically, they wasted their own money trying to shoot down these small drones.
As far as our offensive actions are concerned, yesterday I had already shared some details about the targets engaged by the Indian Air Force. The composite picture of the Indian Air Force targeting so far is now shown on the screen. As you can see, we have targeted the length and breadth of the adversary.
Okay, perfect. So, so what happened was, just to give you guys a timeline, the Indians launched the first offensive. In that offensive, the Pakis got 42 aircraft airborne, and it was a battle of 125 aircraft in which supposedly now there is enough evidence, I would say, for us to say quite convincingly multiple Indian aircraft came down, probably more than five. And then after that, when the five aircraft came down, the Indians launched another offensive to kind of get back. And this is that offensive that the Air Marshal here is talking about. And if you think, actually this quite closely matches with the presentation given by Air Marshal on the Pakistani side, because I think he showed us that there were some BrahMos missiles launched from Rajasthan, Suratgarh, towards Rafiki or some bases here in Sindh, and that's what this presentation is also claiming. Um, we have a hands up. Yes, Max Steel, go ahead.
Harjeet, I am sorry to interrupt your commentary, but I just want to make a quick point. So this quadcopter, that the picture, I'm just seeing it for the first time now today. I did not see the briefing before. This isn't a DJI quadcopter. This is I mean, these kind of drones are available on AliExpress for $100.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this isn't even a DJI one. It's a
Yeah.
cheap version.
Yeah, and it matches with what the Pakistanis yesterday in our space were claiming, that they figured out that the Indians don't have a soft kill mechanism and they are shooting expensive missiles at cheap drones. So now they are making these drones in hundreds and sending them every day across the border in the hope that the Indians will launch all the Pichoras and BrahMos and what God knows. And probably this is what happened in Adhampur. You know what they were saying, that the Indians launched five projectiles which landed close to Amritsar. They are probably firing Pichoras at these $400 drones. I'm pretty sure maybe that explains that kind of a behavior. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But
Okay, new listeners, if you don't see the video, I put a link up there in the nest. Please follow there. You can see the whole live video there.
yeah, and if you can retweet the space, people who are here, and retweet my live stream so more people can join, that'll be super great. Okay, and let's continue.
I'm sure most of you would have already seen the effect of these strikes on ground, courtesy the large number of videos and photographs being circulated in the media.
Okay. So, General, I am hoping you will share something with us as well, and if there is something circulating in social media which is credible, as per you, please show us. Maybe he's going to show us those videos.
A few representative examples from the open source are now being shown to you on the screen. In fact, two of them. This is the strike on the Noor Khan Air Base. And you can see the effect. I'm sure most of you have seen the video. I've also picked it up from your sources only. And this is the aftermath of our strike at Rahim Yar Khan Air Base. You can see the massive crater that it has left on its runway. And you can see the pinpoint accuracy of our weapons.
Okay. Yeah, it's a crater. I won't call it a massive crater, but it's a crater, okay? Crater nonetheless. And the Pakis did admit, to their credit, that Rahim Yar Khan was hit, and the runway was hit. But I'm not sure how an important Rahim Yar Khan base is. This Rahim Yar Khan is kind of quite way far back. I believe it's almost in Balochistan, and I doubt if it is one of their main bases. I think their main bases are Sargoda, Mir. I've forgotten the names, but Rahim Yar Khan was always there, but never stuck to me as a major base. But probably, they did hit it. Yeah, that's true.
So with that, giving you an overview of how our air defense.
Okay, but now what I'm seeing is like, okay, he showed to me like probably 13 different targets that they targeted, but he showed me videos from open source of only two places, not even two, one. In the other place, he's just doing a missile going towards that, which is from open source. So where is the battle damage assessment? Like, where is that, man? Show me something. Like we hit it, but there's none. Yeah, somebody has a hand raised. Shafiq, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for giving me the. I just wanted to clarify about Reem Yar Khan. It's at the border of. It's in Punjab, at the border of Punjab and Balochistan, and this airport is basically a strip, mostly because it's used by the planes from UAE. They built this airport or for their own purposes when they come over for hunting and stuff. This airport is used mostly for their own purposes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's what the gentleman who was here yesterday from Pakistan was saying, that this is not a serious airfield, and this is more like on the recreational mode. But yeah, anyways, okay, let's keep moving.
Systems have thwarted the enemy drones, their fighter aircraft, their missiles, and resulted in minimal losses on our side.
Okay, so you see, he kind of, at least he's accurate. He's saying we thwarted their drones, their missiles, their aircraft, and resulted in minimum damage on our side. So at least he's not saying he brought down anything on the Pakistani side or damaged any aircraft, except that runway that he showed to us. So yeah, I think marks to him for being factual. Yeah, Mr. Sanathan, go ahead.
I have a stupid question. Sorry for my ignorance.
No.
Doesn't the modern day missiles have cameras installed inside them?
Yes.
Just to.
Yes. Like Storm Shadow, the one that they fired at the civilian. So the India did hit the civilian targets. They hit on the 9th of 6th and 7th. That is true. But those were like defenseless civilian buildings where they fired these missiles, and they could have actually shown us the pictures, but it would have been very odd for them to show those pictures because they would come across as terrorists, because those missiles are targeting civilian buildings, and uh, and I think probably that is why they are not sharing those. But the scalp missile Storm Shadow, I think there was a U.S. Air Force guy who was here. He had pretty much of experience. He told me, Harjeet, that it does before the final terminal stage. It sends the data to through data link up, and so yeah.
There are a couple of videos you can look on the Ukraine-Russian war. They show specifically this technology.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So, but this attack that we are talking, he's briefing today, Mr. Sanathan, is not the one on the night of 6th or 7th. This is the one. This is the retaliation from India after the Pakistanis had taken down their 5 aircraft. Okay, and then not just that, after the Pakistanis bombed 26 different places within India, that is the time they did a minimal retaliation, it seems, from their end, which but the Pakistanis were not very effective.
I would now hand over to the DGMO to cover his portion.
धन्यवाद एयर मार्शल भारती। मैं आज आप सब के साथ भारतीय सेना के एयर डिफेंस।
Okay, now here Mr. Bharti, Air Marshal Bharti, who starts off this speech wearing a dangri in English, and then he switches off to DGMO Army, which is fine. Mr. General Rajiv Ghai, and he starts off in Hindi. I have no clue what other language the naval guy will speak. Will it be Tamil or like something like, or what's going on here? And you might not find it odd, but honestly, as a military professional, I find it odd. Like this switching of language without a warning, for what? Like, what is he trying to prove by speaking in Hindi? Your audience is international. Why are you speaking in a regional language of India? Like, you don't want people to know what they're supposed to know. Like, if you have to give some, it's basically very political messaging. Okay, so that's what they're trying to do here.
डिफेंस मेजर्स जो कि हमने इंडियन एयरफोर्स के साथ मिलजुल कर तालमेल में लिए, उसके बारे में कुछ बातचीत करूंगा। इस विषय में मैंने
Okay. उसके बारे में कुछ बातचीत करूंगा. As if we have come here for बातचीत. Like, are we here for a table talk, like over tea and biscuits? You see, like everything, the moment you like, it's odd. And like everything I see in this presentation, it riles my blood because Indian armed forces are not this unprofessional. Like what is coming out in this bloody presentation. And उसके बारे में मैं आपसे बातचीत करूंगा. Like बातचीत, like I have come to for like the evening talk with you guys. Like you say, I have come to brief you and take questions from you. And this is why this language Hindi doesn't serve any purpose. English is crisp, clear. You should have used it.
कल भी कुछ टिप्पणी करी थी, लेकिन आज मैं इस युद्ध के अहम एस्पेक्ट के बारे में आपको थोड़ा और पर्सपेक्टिव देना चाहता हूं. हमें एयर डिफेंस ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के एयर डिफेंस की कार्रवाई को एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में समझने की आवश्यकता है. मैंने आपको कल बताया था कि पिछले कुछ सालों में आतंक की गतिविधियों का कैरेक्टर जो है उसमें कुछ बदलाव आ रहा था. अब हमारी मिलिट्री के साथ साथ मासूम सिविलियंस जो कि अपना बचाव करने में विफल थे, उन पर भी हमले हो रहे थे. 2024 में जम्मू सेक्टर में शिवखोरी मंदिर को जाते हुए यात्री और इस साल अप्रैल में पहलगाम में मासूम पर्यटक इस खतरनाक ट्रेंड के विशेष उदाहरण हैं. पहलगाम तक पाप का ये घड़ा भर चुका था.
My God, like this is ridiculously embarrassing. Like this seems like a Bollywood script right now to me. पाप का घड़ा भर चुका है. I don't know कौन सा घड़ा भरेगा अगली बार. ठीक है, like amazing man, amazing. Like why did you choose the Hindi language to give this briefing? And that too, like man, like have a better script writer. Okay, बातचीत करूंगा, पाप का घड़ा भर गे चुका था, करेक्टर चेंज हो चुका था. What the hell? हैं?
He should ask Air Force. There would be a better dialogue. He should ask the Air Force. कितने आदमी थे और तुम कितने थे?
We don't want to. I want to be more serious in this. I'm a social media guy. I still want to be serious when I'm there in front of you guys. Okay, though we are friends, but here is the general briefing, like entire international world, and he's using a Bollywood script like "पाप का घड़ा भर चुका था, तो हमने पता नहीं विष्णु से क्या किया." Like what the hell is going on?
Your colleague is here, Lal, another Air Force veteran.
हाँ जी लाल.
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹਾਸਾ ਯਾਰ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਬੰਦਾ ਯਾਰ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਸੌਰੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਪਿੱਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੋਇਆ ਇੱਕ ਮਿੰਟ.
Okay. ਲਾਲ ਭਾਜੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਰੁਕੋ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ then we can talk.
And
And
ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਹਾਸੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦਾ. ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਮੋਦੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਹਾਸਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਪੀਚ ਰਾਈਟਰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਘਟੀਆ ਆ, ਕੋਈ ਚੱਜ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖਦੇ. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੋਦੀ ਨੇ ਸਪੀਚ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਮੇਡ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਸ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੀਤਾ, ਵੀ ਜਹਾਜ਼ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਲੇ ਰਫੇਲ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਡਾਇਆ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਰਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਸੀਗਾ, ਬਾਕੀ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਸਗਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਿਆ.
right. We'll cover that, Lal Paji. We want to hold on from using too much Punjabi in the beginning. We'll switch to Punjabi in the later part when we go into the commentary. But Coin, you want to add something before we move on?
So did he just mention two incidences which particularly targeted Hindus? Is that what he meant?
Yeah.
He meant in that?
Yeah.
So all the other incidences occurring against the Muslims or the Sikhs
Or the Christians in Northeast.
Christians.
Thousands of Christians have been killed by terrorists. Finds no mention. One Hindu gets killed and they start a war. But there are not 1,000, like multiple thousand Christians have been murdered, raped right now as we talk in the Northeast past by the Hindu terrorists. But those are obviously not terrorists. They are just people who are wronged. Okay. Anyways, we don't want to waste our time too much. I want people, because there will be many people who will be interested in kind of understanding why the Indian Air Force, and I'm going to use this briefing to tell you, based on my experience, why the Indian armed forces performed so poorly. So while my comments might sound in jest, but they have a deeper meaning. The switch of language, this unprofessionalism, it all counts, okay, in the profession of arms. Everything counts. When you are so loose and you are confused, that what your job is.
उसके बाद जो हुआ उसके बारे में हम कल विस्तार में बातचीत कर चुके हैं, क्योंकि आतंकियों पर हमारे सटीक हमले लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल और इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री को पार करे बिना किए गए थे। हमें पूरा अंदेशा था कि पाकिस्तान का वार भी बॉर्डर के उस पार से ही होगा। इसलिए हमने अपनी एयर डिफेंस की पूरी तैयारी पहले से ही कर ली थी। हमारी इन्वेंट्री में शामिल काउंटर मैन्ड
Okay. So, okay. So, did you guys get the question here? Who is in charge of the air defense here? Did you see that? Air Force has its own air defense with all these systems which don't talk to each other. And the army guy comes and he says, "Humne bhi air defense. We also prepared our air defense." Yes, army has an air defense, but you cannot have different owners of two different air defense systems in the same area. It's a fundamental flaw, and that is why they failed so much. One of the big reasons, because the army wants to have its own air defense. It's just a matter of ego. They just don't want to give away that control. They're like, no, we'll have our own air defense. Okay, so he's showing you his own. But look, we also have the same stuff. We are also as cool as the Air Force. We also have all these systems that they don't know how to use, honestly. And I'll tell you anecdotes from my experience how poorly these systems of the army are integrated, and how poor they are in actually using them. They have no clue what kind of equipment they have, and they're just sitting on it and wasting all that equipment. And now he has built up another animation. Okay, what information does this give you? Does it give you any information? He's picked up one kind of a snapshot from their computer system, which probably shows some fake aircraft flying in peacetime, and he's brought it to this presentation. You see, so what he's trying to do is actually he's trying to show off that, look, Air Force, we also have air defense. We can also have this integrated CCC, whatever these cool things you have. That's all that is happening here in this. He's not showing off. He's showing off to his counterpart in the Air Force, and it's a turf battle that you are seeing right in front of you.
एरियल सिस्टम्स, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वॉरफेयर के साधन और एयर डिफेंस वेपन्स का इंडियन एयरफोर्स के इसी प्रकार के सिस्टम्स के साथ एक अनोखा
Okay. What he's saying is, yes, we had a system, but we had a unique integration with the Air Force air defense. Okay, unique. Anoka means unique. That means it's only unique to India. Okay, nobody does this way in the world. So what he's showing to you right now, because this brings back old memories. This is called Joint Air Defense Center. It is at a core level, and this is the what happens at a core. There's an Air Force unit which kind of people with my background or my branch who are posted there. My last posting was in Jalandhar for this particular work. Okay, and when I bring out the anecdote, you see all these things, monitors they have. I can bet half of these army people who are sitting there, they have no clue what is coming up on these monitors. They have some clue, but not a full complete clue. Okay, because and so I was and you see that picture, if you see closely, this picture on the top left, there is this picture of India's western border, and then there are some probably tracks or something kind of marked up there. But you see, they're picking up nothing on the western side, on the Pakistani side. God knows why. Um, so what actually happens is, when the army deploys, like in a war mode, they activate Joint Air Defense Center, which is supposed to be a joint AD center between army and air force. When I was posted, this was my last posting, and this is for people to know why Indian armed forces are so far behind. And I'm talking about year 2005. This was my first posting. When I got posted to this unit, I thought, okay, this is my job. I have to operationalize this. And I called up the army counterpart, and we should deploy this. He said, we never deploy it. I said, when do you deploy it? He said, in the exercise. I said, when is the exercise? That happens every 2 3 years. I said, but like, how do I practice for the exercise? Like, let's deploy it. And he said, that's not an issue. He said, we'll deploy it tomorrow. I said, what? You'll deploy it tomorrow? And so he said, yeah, my people are like super fast. And I said, okay, fine. And I was thinking, man, like to deploy all this communication and everything, like it's a mobile kind of a unit, okay? It's gonna probably take like many days. But then he said, and next day, lo behold, this army guy comes and takes me to the ops room, which is very beautifully set up. And on that, there is a big chair with like 7, 8 phones in front of me, and that is I am the director of the Joint Air Defense Center. And I come in here and I call my men. I said, okay, guys, take your positions. This guy there, and then they bring like chai and samosa to me. Okay, and then I pick up the first phone to call up the artillery, the written like this is to so and so unit, and I say, okay, let me test the communication. I pick it up, and there's no tone. And I ask this guy, Subidar sir, like this phone doesn't work. He says, how? Yeah. He's looking at blank face at me. Pick up the second one, no tone. Pick up the third one, no tone. Pick up all the seven, no tone. And I go and saying, what is this showing up on the picture? Is it coming from there first? No. They've just a video kind of playing there. And I said, how is this an ops room? He said, ऐसे ही होता है साहब. मैं कहा तो मैं बात कैसे करूंगा? बोला बात तो कभी होती नहीं. मैं कहा ये तार कहाँ जा रही है इसकी? Like where is this wire going from this phone? And he picked up the rug. The wire ended right underneath my feet. Okay. So I asked him, what the hell? Like, is this the ops room? He said, every time we do this. And he said, yes, sir, every time we do this. I said, who comes to check this? So General Saab comes. I said, what do you show him? We show him all this. And he's very happy. We always have a praise. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And what I do is, and this is a real story, okay? And the guy and what like my blood royals, and I'm like, what the hell? I go and talk to my senior and say, these idiots don't know what they're doing, and they're not absent. And he calms me down and says, Harjeet, this is how army works. Don't worry, we are all here to get our pays. And I'm like, I'm not going to accept this, and I'm going to operationalize this joint air defense center. I said, bring me this SOP, like how it is supposed to be done. They bring back this book, and when I open the book, it's an SOP, almost like a register, like this thick. The register, I see what date was it last revised? Last, and this is year 2005, and the date of revision was 1992. Okay, the SOP was written in 1992. Okay, so then what I do is I said, what the hell? I can't follow this SOP. Like, is this applicable in today's day and age? So I then go ahead and make my own SOP. Then I start calling up all the units. I call up that, okay, we need communication for this, setting this up. And they say, oh, where is the equipment? I say, we don't have the equipment. I said, okay, if the core is moving tomorrow, how are we going to get that equipment? He said, we call from the air headquarters. So how much time it takes to get it from the air headquarters? He said, sometimes 1 month, sometimes 2 months, depending upon how much they have. So then how are you going to deploy in 3 hours, which you're, no answer. I worked for 6 months to activate like a proper JADC, for which my commanding officer gave me a poor ACR because I caused too much noise. Okay, because everybody was pissed off with me, but that's fine. And so this is the state mindset of the Indian. What I'm trying to highlight is that the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force, and the Indian Navy, these are fiefdoms, and they don't work in tandem. They, whenever they have this concept of jointness and working together, it is primarily for the show. And all the, and these problems happen in all the armed forces. Okay, all the armed forces. Let's not kid ourselves. This turf war is everywhere, but the amount to which it exists in the Indian armed forces is just mind boggling. Like you won't imagine. Like, and the army doesn't know how to manage air defense, but they want to manage air defense, and it's a mess. Anyways, let's continue.
मिश्रण किया गया। इसलिए आपने देखा कि जब जब पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ने हमारे एयरफील्ड्स और लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉल
Okay, let's try to let's try to decipher this picture he has made up. Okay, with some compass. Okay, so there is IACCS. Okay, in the bottom, which I would assume is okay. So the international border is there, and then his first layer is drone and man parts. Okay, which is the first layer. So those, I think the smaller circles are the first layer up front. Okay, second layer, point A defense short range. So all this is fine. Like this is just a diagram. Like show me like something like like in action, right? Like I can draw a better diagram. Like put like look how he has put this stuff out. Okay, was this the actual deployment? We don't know. Like this is World War II stuff. Honestly, if you ask me.
इंस्टॉलेशंस में 9 और 10 मई की रात को लगातार हमले किए, वो इस मजबूत एयर डिफेंस ग्रिड के सामने विफल हो गए। आपके सामने इस ग्रिड को एक तरीके से दर्शाया गया है। आप देख रहे हैं कि इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री से कितनी लेयर्स, रडार्स, काउंटर, अनमैन्ड एरियल सिस्टम्स, उसके पीछे शोल्डर फायर्ड वेपन्स, हमारे विंटेज एयर डिफेंस वेपन्स।
Again, the vintage comes in. Okay, so it's kind of because they can't help it. They know half of their equipment is vintage. Okay, so and it's yeah. So the poor guy brings the vintage.
जो कि काफी सालों से हमारी सेना में हैं। एयर मार्शल भारती ने भी उसके बारे में बात करी। और लास्ट में हमारे मॉडर्न एयर डिफेंस वेपन सिस्टम्स। तो कोई मौका नहीं था कि पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ये मल्टी टियर डिफेंस को पार करके पीछे हमारी एयरफील्ड्स या लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस को टारगेट कर पाए। ये जो डायग्राम आप अपने सामने देख रहे हैं, ये मुझे एक इंसिडेंट की याद दिला रहा है। और मैं आपको इस उदाहरण के जरिए से एक ये एस्पेक्ट हाईलाइट करना चाहता हूं। और जब मैं स्कूल में था,
Okay, so he is basically doing me right now. Okay, as if I am doing the YouTube video. जब मुझे इंसिडेंट की याद आई, like I narrated, the journalists have also remembered. So right in the briefing, the whole world is watching. What happened? The general साहब got remembered with the incident जब वो स्कूल में थे. Oh my God, man, this is a disaster. General, what's going on? I think the generals are so pissed off that the bureaucrat just sent them to be the scapegoats. They are basically getting their revenge in a different way. They can't be so dumb, okay? They're doing it deliberately. I can guarantee you. They all understand what's going on, that they are the scapegoats. And
तो तकरीबन मेरे ख्याल से ये 70 का दशक था। और उस समय इंग्लैंड और ऑस्ट्रेलिया के बीच में, आज शायद क्रिकेट की बात भी करनी चाहिए, क्योंकि मैं देख रहा था कि विराट कोहली ने टेस्ट क्रिकेट से रिटायरमेंट ले ली। कई भारतीयों की तरह वो मेरे भी फेवरेट क्रिकेटर हैं। तो 70 के दशक में ऑस्ट्रेलिया और इंग्लैंड की फेमस एशेज सीरीज चल रही थी। और उस समय ऑस्ट्रेलिया के दो बहुत तेज गेंदबाज, जो कि क्रिकेट हिस्ट्री में बड़ा उनका नाम है, जेफ थॉमसन और डेनिस लिली, उन्होंने अंग्रेजी बैट्समैन और उनकी बैटिंग लाइनअप को तहस नहस कर दिया था। और ऑस्ट्रेलियंस ने उस समय एक कहावत निकाली थी, दैट फ्रॉम एशेज टू एशेज एंड फ्रॉम डस्ट टू डस्ट, इफ थॉमो डोंट गेट हियर देन लिली श्योरली मस्ट। और अगर आप इस लेयर को देखें तो आप समझ जाएंगे कि मैं आपको क्या बताने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं।
oh my God, what an analogy! Like, this is the worst thing he could have done. Okay, so I hope I don't have to comment on the competence of Indian Army to manage air defense. I think he's kind of laying it out himself in front of you. This is how the army thinks of air defense. Okay, from ashes to ashes, Thomas to this, and in his viewpoint, these manpads, these vintage AD guns, like they surely should be able to bring them. I honestly have no idea in today's day and world what an air defense gun is doing in the plains of Punjab, and what is it going to bring down, except maybe a couple of birds. Like air defense guns, which range is like 3. Maybe they have a use in a hilly area where the aircraft will come in their range, but I don't know. Like what is the lethality of these manpads? God knows. maybe the equipment has progressed, but I used to question their utility even in 2008 or 2005. But here he is,
तो अगर आप सारे सिस्टम्स को पार कर भी गए तो आपको फिर भी एयरफील्ड या लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशन या जो भी चीज को आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं, उसमें पहुंचने से पहले कोई ना कोई इस लेयर्ड ग्रिड का सिस्टम जरूर गिरा देगा। जो दुर्दशा कल आपने पाकिस्तान एयरफील्ड्स की देखी, और शायद आज भी एयर मार्शल भारती की प्रेजेंटेशन में, हमारी एयरफील्ड्स हर प्रकार से ऑपरेशनल हैं। यही नहीं, पाकिस्तान के ड्रोन्स और वेपनाइज्ड यूएवीज से की गई हमलावर कोशिशें भी इस ग्रिड के कारण नाकाम हुई और जो बचे कुचे ड्रोन्स थे उन्हें हमारे शोल्डर फायर्ड हथियारों से मार गिराया गया। मैं यहां पर अपनी बॉर्डर सिक्योरिटी फोर्स की भी सराहना करना चाहता हूं। उनके डायरेक्टर जनरल साहब से लेकर बॉर्डर पर तैनात बीओपी पर पहरा देने वाले आखिरी जवान भी हमारे इस अभियान में बढ़ चढ़कर शामिल हुए और बहुत बहादुरी से उन्होंने हमारा साथ दिया। उनके काउंटर अनार्म्ड सिस्टम्स भी हमारे इस मल्टी टियर्ड एयर डिफेंस ग्रिड का हिस्सा थे, जिसके कारण पाकिस्तान की नापाक हरकतों का विनाश किया गया। आपने सुना ही होगा, जब हौसले बुलंद हों तो मंजिलें भी कदम चूमती हैं। In the end, I would like to highlight again.
Okay, now he switches back to English. And like, what is the next language, man? Like, tell me which sentence will come in Hindi, which can be English, so I can manage my mind thought process here. So, okay, again, he didn't share any information. He basically said that we took down everything that came in through manpads, whatever air defense we had. But like the pictures he shows are just drones. So he has to explain to me like all the weapon systems he was talking about, manpads, AD gun, are they capable of taking down a missile which is coming at 4 Mach, 3 Mach, yeah, and maybe even 5 Mach? I don't know. I have never seen any AD gun or a manpad which can do that. Or this surface to air missiles that the Indian Army has. I don't think any of them is capable to take down a missile. And we know in today's environment, the Pakistanis, why will they send an aircraft across the IB? They'll be stupid. They're going to shoot, they're going to get the aircraft airborne, and they're going to shoot from the other side like the Indians did. So the question is, all this layered air defense he has, what percentage of the layered air defense is capable of taking down that kind of a weapon system, detecting it, identifying it, and then destroying it? Like, I don't think he commented on it at all. The only thing he's showing to us is drones, drones, and more drones, like $300 drones. Fine.
That in every single domain that Operation Sindhur has been prosecuted, there has been absolute synergy between the three services. Not only have we, in this endeavor, been fully supported by our government, departments, and agencies, I cannot here not mention our 140 crore countrymen that have stood behind us with their prayers and goodwill, urging and inspiring us to achieve our mission and objectives. For that, we salute you. You are indeed the best. Jai Hind.
Okay, great. So he had
Good afternoon, ladies.
he had to thank the babus, right? So he names them. I have to thank the babus, like the government, the departments. Like, which army comes and thanks the government and the departments, man? Like, tell me, like, not the soldiers, not the air warriors, not the ones who died, governments and the departments and 1.5 billion people who've been telling lies all across on the internet for last bloody 15 days. Amazing. So now our naval journey, like my impression is that the Navy, is of the three forces, the Navy is slightly more professional. My impression, I might be wrong. I was in a unique position where I got to work. I was the Air Force officer, but I got to work a lot with the Navy in my first posting. I used to do exercises with them. Then in my last posting was with the Army, so I know in depth, in and out, what the strength and weakness of Army is. So you should see hopefully a better presentation here. Let's see what goes on.
Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the air defense capability, the Indian Navy operates as a composite network force capable of simultaneously addressing threats emanating from all domains, that is,
air, surface, and subsurface through amalgamation of advanced sensors synchronized on the combat management systems. In effect, the maritime force is able to ensure persistent surveillance, detection, and identification for a comprehensive maritime domain awareness, including the airspace. Effectively using multiple sensors and inputs, we are maintaining continuous surveillance to degrade or neutralize threats as they emerge or manifest to ensure targeting at extended ranges. All these are conducted under the umbrella of a comprehensive and effective layered fleet air defense mechanism that caters for all threats, be it drones or high-speed missiles or aircraft, both fighters as well as surveillance aircraft. The fleet operates as a composite force, maintaining a surveillance bubble at extended ranges using advanced radars. Any aerial target that attempts to penetrate this bubble is detected and identified using various techniques and
Okay. Did you guys notice this consistent theme of air defense? Like when they went to the army, they're talking about air defense. When the navy goes, he's not talking about naval warfare. He's basically obsessed with air defense, and he's trying to show, look, our air defense is also good. And I think it's because they are shocked. I think they're all shocked, and they now realize that this whole war is a game of air defense, and air defense has been a consistently neglected aspect of the Indian armed forces. And I gave you a small anecdote from my experience. They never took it seriously when I was in the service. They always kind of treated it like the Indian Air Force treated it like a stepchild. So for them, the fighter pilot and the fighter aircraft is like the big thing. So as per Hindu Varnashram system, there is a hierarchy. Somebody has to be in top, and the air defense who takes care of air defense? Okay, it's radars and sensors. But what they fail to realize, and I think now, hopefully, with this lesson, they realize that the air defense is everything. Like air defense cannot be just standalone radars with people just sitting doing whatever they want to do. It has to be an integrated system, picture. It has to control everything, and the importance of data links, synergies, all that stuff that Air Marshal from the Pakistani side talked about. I hope if you see both these presentations, even a layman can make out the difference in professionalism and capability just by looking at the presentations. Okay, the choice of language, the words, the precision of those, like you can make it out. And even if you're a layman and if you are a former military, you for sure can, especially if you're from the Air Force. And so the naval guys today think, okay, air defense is the big thing. Air defense failed, so everybody is now obsessed about air defense.
technologies affording quick and clear distinction between commercial, neutral, and hostile aircraft or flying objects at ranges in excess of the anticipated attack range. The Carrier Battle Group, with its integral air wing, provides the first layer of this layered mechanism. Adequately equipped and trained to high degree of proficiency, our pilots are able to operate both by day and night. In the current standoff, the presence of our aircraft carrier with large number of MiG-29K fighters and airborne early warning helicopters prevented any suspicious or hostile aircraft to close the Carrier Battle Group within several hundred kilometers. अगर मैं सरल शब्दों में
Okay, so what is this, man? This is a mind-boggling statement. He's saying, in this situation, presence of large number of MiG-29s. What is the large number? We know the capacity is 12. And early warning helicopters, like helicopters which carry radar, which is a very effective mean of carrying radar. And so you can't carry a big radar in a helicopter, but they have like some tiny radars fitted and they use it for AEW. That's fine. And what he's saying is that deterred anything to come close to our aircraft carrier. Okay, fine. But then what? Like, was that the sole purpose of Indian Navy in this entire operation? Was that your objective, that we are going to plant our aircraft carrier in the middle of the Arabian Ocean and then make sure the Pakistani Navy does not come close to it? That's like, what is this objective? Like, then what is he doing here in this? If that was the objective for Indian Navy, he's kind of letting go of the objective given to probably Indian Navy was just to show off the aircraft carrier, go into the middle of the Arabian Ocean, sit there, and they just not get sunk by the Pakistan Navy. I don't know. Like, I'm not a naval guy. Somebody from Navy should explain this kind of tactic to me. But that's what I gather from what he's saying.
बोलूं तो कोई भी संदिग्ध और दुश्मन के हवाई जहाज को कैरल बैटल ग्रुप के कई सौ किलोमीटर पास आने का मौका नहीं दिया. Over the past few years, and most importantly, immediately after the cowardly incident by Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attack at Pahalgam, we had validated our anti-missile and anti-aircraft defense capability in a complex threat environment using cross-platform cooperative mechanism. Our powerful carrier battle group with formidable offensive capability was able to operate with impunity and maintained an uncontested presence in the area of operations. Effectively, it compelled the Pakistani air elements to remain bottled up close to the Makran coast, denying any opportunity to be a threat in maritime space. The Indian Navy maintains a credible capability to detect, identify, and neutralize any aerial platforms that threaten our units at sea. To sum up, the Indian Navy's dominance thus ensured that, should we choose to, we can strike at will. Thank you. Shamdo Varna, Jai Hind.
This doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, I'm not a naval guy. Somebody from the Navy should analyze this. But here's my in Air Force officers, air defense officers, nervous take. What he's saying is that we plonked 400 nautical miles away from the coast in the Arabian Ocean, where, and then we deterred the Pakistani Air Force from doing any offensive action in that area. Why would the Pakistani Air Force even have any intention of doing any offensive action there? They'll be stupid. Why would they come off 400 nautical miles off their coast? It'll be stupid of them. It'll be like it's totally foolish of them. Their aim is to deter you. Your aim should be the offensive, to kind of blockade them, block their ships. But you couldn't go you couldn't go close enough to even create that kind of pressure on them. And so I don't know what he's talking about. He's basically saying I was the useless guy in this whole deal. Like, we had nothing to offer, which is very surprising. The Indian Navy should have a lot more to offer. And maybe it was a political decision that they didn't blockade their ships or the ship traffic, because probably they feared what was next to come. If they had tried blocking a ship, or if they had tried a blockade, that is when they would have been tested. Then I would have said this. If they said we blocked their traffic for whatever, 3 days or 4 days, or we made these many ships turn a different way, then I would have said, okay, you have done something. Then because you would have expected a hostile response from the Pakistani Air Force. But why would the Pakistani Navy or Air Force try to have any kind of response to something which is not even a threat to them? Surprising.
May I now hand over to Director General Air Operations for further proceedings.
Thank you, Pramod. I think a lot has been said, and I would only end by saying and emphatically state that all our military bases, all our systems continue to remain fully operational and ready to undertake any future missions should the need so arise. और अंत में यह मैं स्पष्ट शब्दों में कह देना चाहता हूं कि हमारी सभी मिलिट्री बेसेस और सारे इक्विपमेंट और सिस्टम्स ऑपरेशनल हैं और ज़रूरत पड़ने पर अपने अगले मिशन के लिए तैयार हैं और तत्पर भी हैं. शुक्रिया दोस्तों, और यदि कोई अभी क्वेश्चंस हैं तो हम लोग तैयार हैं उसके लिए.
Second, ladies and gentlemen, like yesterday, I'll request you to raise your placards, which most of you are doing. Again, repeating it, anything which is confidential in nature will not be responded to.
Okay, I know we have a hand raised. The question answer is very interesting because the very first question is about hits. But anyways, Anwar Saab, go ahead, please.
ये
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. I was listening to your analysis, and it's spot on many respects. I just have one thing to say. I think the Indian military, their approach to this confrontation was largely framed in the backdrop of 1971. Um, I'm particularly talking from the Air Force point of view. So if you go back and you roll back and you look at the comparison, apart from numerical superiority, I think in terms of morale, the Indian Air Force was way ahead of Pakistan in 71 for
Yeah.
obvious reasons. We had a civil war and all.
Yeah.
What I think they forgot was that over the last 20 years, particularly given what was happening in Afghanistan, having a lot of exposure to a first generation fighting force like the American Air Force, Pakistan learned a lot. They learned about spectrum warfare, they learned about layered defense, and they actually backed it up with a tremendous amount of training. And I think that was decisive. I mean, the Indian Air Force, I mean, as a Pakistani, I should not sit there and think the Indian Air Force is a walkover. It isn't. It's a good fighting force. But where they broke down was the command factor.
Yeah.
And I think the second part they broke down was they didn't quite expect. You see, what is Pakistan's biggest problem from a defense perspective? And I presume, Harjit, you were in the Air Force, right, Gavin? We don't have the depth. So our layered defense has to be vertical.
Yeah.
So when we stack up our planes, it has to be vertical. It can't be like India. India can have hold their units back on the middle, or even on the east coast and commit them as they want.
Yeah.
So for Pakistan, the only neutralizing factor then was electronic warfare.
Right.
And that's where I think the edge came. I think a bigger edge came in is, and you were talking about the Indian Navy. My perspective is Turkey did something very interesting. 2 days before the hostilities actually started, they sent one of their ships, along with support ships, close to inside Pakistan, close to Karachi. It was like almost telling the Indian Navy, look, we guys are also here and you better be careful not to hit us. So I think that played a bit of a role, not a decisive role. It played a bit of a role. And I think, INS Vikrant with 30 aircrafts, most of whom are helicopters, a few, I think, Sukhoi 30s or 20s, in fact, the old
29s, 29s, MiG-29s.
I don't think actual fighting aircraft are 12. The rest are support aircraft,
That's right.
helicopters. So 12 aircraft, in the scheme of things, is not going to make a difference to any fighting force in the modern day. And a big factor I felt was whoever planned the purchase of the Rafale for India quite didn't understand you can have a Rafale, which is a 4.5 generation aircraft, but it cannot operate alone without having a air superiority fifth generation plane supporting it. That, I think, is one of the key factors that made a difference. I could be wrong.
No, absolutely. I think from a tactical standpoint, you're absolutely right. Um, but this was the end result of something else. The root cause was not this. This is the factor that led to, you are right, the tactical defeat of the Indian Air Force. But what led to this situation? Indian Air Force should not have been sitting in this situation. The Indian Navy should not have been sitting in this situation. The Indian Army should not have been sitting in the situation that it currently is. And my guess is the gap between the Indian Army versus Pakistan Army is probably even worse than what the Air Force gap is. And to my knowledge, that aspect is multifold. First is the overall. You probably already know that in the quote unquote Indian system, the Indian generals and Indian air marshals have no say, no operational autonomy. They don't have no. They either also don't have any financial autonomy. like even the bare minimum that is required to run an efficient organization. So for everything, they are kind of beholden to the bureaucratic leadership for approval. So what that leads to, first of all, political selection of generals who are very pliant, and then very in lately it has also moved on to who are ideologically aligned with the so-called idea of the Hindu Rashtra. So that's one problem. The other problem is that the make and structure, like at the end of the day, the culture of the armed force will come out of the people that you will hire to make it. It's human beings who form that arm. So the overall composition of the Indian Air Force as well as Indian Navy has changed, and it has become a lot more the type of ethnicities, the type of people, the type of cultural component that is coming has changed, and on the Indian Army side as well. So first they changed that at the leadership level, at an officer cadre level, and then now they tinkered it even with that the troop level, and with the latest Agniveer scheme. I was hearing that they couldn't get a single Sikh recruit. They did rallies across Punjab, not a single. That's the word, not my word, the word of the recruitment officer, that they can't get a guy to recruit. And so I think the morale is low on the army side. The equipment was always low because of lack of operational and financial autonomy. And in my assessment, today the Indian army is very poor. Like there's hardly any defense. Like it can't hold its own against Pakistan army at all. That's my assessment. I don't want you guys to overestimate them, but my assessment is that. And my assessment was that for the Air Force as well. And I was talking about it for many years. And anytime I talked, and it's also about the culture. Look, General Saab, like or Mr. Anwar, I don't know what your background is, but look at the cultural side of this thing, right? This whole skirmish that happened, this battle happened. I'm an Indian Air Force veteran. I could have a frank, objective, even contentious discussion here. But who are the people who are willing to come and have that open, honest discussion? Pakistanis. How many Indian Armed Forces personnel are here? Who are even, how many of them do you see on their television, on their social media, objectively analyzing the situation, what might have happened? Yes, there is a lot of uh, psyops, there is a lot of propaganda, there is misinformation coming from the Pakistani side as well. We can't take everything for granted, but at least let's do an objective analysis of the situation. The Indian armed forces didn't do that even in Balakot, and they have lost that culture of being honest, because that requires courage, that requires honesty, and they have lost it culturally, is what I see. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Anwar. Anwar sir, go ahead.
Yeah, Ajit, I've, I don't know if you know, okay, my background, my father was in the British Army. He fought in Burma. He grew up in England. And when the war broke out, he was on holiday, the first holiday he'd ever made to the subcontinent. He never spoke Pashto, my mother tongue, or Urdu even. And in 1965, he was a brigadier on the Lahore front against the 15th Indian Division. The Rinjan Prashad's headquarters he overran and captured his jeep and all that Irish. He was awarded a Halal-e-Jurat. He disagreed with Ayub's conduct of the war and Musa's, and soon he was sidelined. And one of the things he said, and it's a famous interview if you go through Pakistan war archives, it's on the internet even. He was asked by the editor of one of the newspapers 2 days after the ceasefire, and he was asked that, I believe on your front, the Indians ran, quote unquote. And my father said, what nonsense are you guys talking? And this is on record. He said, when the Indian forces crossed into our borders, we fought very bravely. And when we crossed into their area, they fought very bravely. We come from the same military stock. Our training, especially till 65, is pretty much in the same British Army mold. So don't sit and sell this to people that there was some celestial divine help to Pakistan and all. So that's the culture I grew up in. I'm a cantonment rat. I did my master's in international relations, specialized in strategic studies. I worked for a year in the Pakistan Institute of Strategic Studies. My master's dissertation was on Pakistan's nuclear options. Some of it is still classified, I believe. I could never publish it. I published 2 chapters only in the Institute of Strategic Studies journal. And then I went into banking, but I continued writing. I've written for the Washington Post, Post Global, the online edition. I used to write a bi-weekly column. 25 years I wrote for Gulf News. I've been writing all my life. I've written a few books, and my current book is on civil military relations in Pakistan. I'm actually editing it these days, the final version. So I had to study the Indian army culture, the Pakistan army, and of course other armies. I personally think, and I'm sorry to give the background, but one of the things that I find any army, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's the American army in Vietnam, when you are caught up in a war that the rank and file in your army doesn't agree with, right? Like Pakistan and Bangladesh,
Yeah.
it hurts your morale, it hurts the esprit de corps, it hurts the ability to fight. I don't know if you agree with me, Archie.
Yeah.
They may not say it, they
Yeah.
may not talk about it. For India, there have been one major thing is Kashmir, of course. When you commit 700,000 forces there, to expect that your rank and file will not think that, is this right? I mean, why do we have so many troops there? Same is happening to us in Baluchistan. In your side also, the other problem is the inability to deal with the Sikh question.
Yeah.
And वो हमारे पाकिस्तान में भी ये प्रॉब्लम है कि if anybody who's from a certain ethnic background or religious background who questions authority, he's immediately labeled a separatist, he's labeled a terrorist and all that. So that element is also, and that's why your example of people not joining the forces. I agree with you, the question of honesty. I was quite surprised, being a Pakistani, knowing how we've had to deal with information, that in our press conferences of the 3 military branches, there was, I wouldn't say 100%, but I would say there was a higher degree of honesty compared to the Indian side. So when they were asked that, did you capture an Indian pilot? And they said, no, not at all. Or have we had any losses in our drones? They said, yeah, 78 went down, 42 got through. So, this, I didn't see this transparency from the Indian side, and that surprised me. I agree with you. I agree that political supremacy of the defense is a must. But once hostilities break out, then the political figures should step back. Because then it's for the professionals to run the war. And I agree with you that that is part of the problem in India, that BJP or Modi are projecting their political and social agenda too far. And that, I think, hurt your morale. I don't know. I may be wrong. Is this a fair analysis?
Yeah, I can add a couple of more things. I think one thing is, before even Modi comes on the picture, okay, you are right. The civilian or the political.
You there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was on mute. I totally agree. I absolutely agree with it. But I want to add a nuance in that understanding. Even before Modi came into picture, Modi added certain other dimensions to this failure or spectacular failure, I have to say. But before even his coming, while I agree that the civilian leadership should be in charge and the armed forces should be subservient to the political masters, the degree to which it happens in India is mind-boggling. It is like Pakistan is the other extreme, wherein the army has too much control on the politics, and it has almost corrupted some elements of the army because of that extreme power. India is on the other extreme side. The armed forces are corrupted because of lack of basic operational autonomy and financial autonomy that you require to make a functional army. And to give you a sense, India's defense budget, I think they always quote like 70% goes to salaries. But if you break that number down, 50% of the salaries and pensions, more than 50%, are defense civilians. Indian army doesn't want these civilians. These civilians are forced upon them by the bureaucrat because they want army to be used as a job giving enterprise, and the people they want to give jobs to don't want to hold the arm and fight the army. They just want to be having a pay. So a lot of budget of the Indian, the whole $72 billion, where does that get wasted? It is
Just,
actually,
just a point of clarification, Harjeet. So what
yeah.
you're saying is these are civilian bureaucrats put into the army in perhaps uniform uh, to run the day-to-day affairs that are non arms bearing.
Correct, correct. More than, and if you even talk about army, right? People who are wearing army uniform, we know more than 50% of the people are non-fighting. The fighting element is generally the infantry, artillery, and the armored, and then most of it is support, 60%. But even over top of that, more than 50% of this budget that you see on paper, like this is the catch that they don't tell you. When you look at Indian Army's budget, you look at, oh, they're spending 72 billion, and then they'll say, oh, we pay so much salaries and pensions. But what they don't tell you is that more than 50% of those salaries and pensions go to defense civilians who contribute nothing to the defense. They are just hired to create jobs. They're total waste. I have not seen a single defense civilian who's of any value to the army. So when you go to the air headquarters or army headquarters, I'm not sure if you ever got a chance to go to Delhi, but if you did, definitely visit air headquarters and army headquarters. And don't just meet the chief of the army staff. Go and just walk the floor and go to and see where all these, DG military operations sets, or the, this so and so other air marshal sets. They are even humiliated very particularly in a very particular fashion. They're given these very, very small rooms with coolers, and the clerk which is supposed to serve that general will be sitting in the side room in an air condition, in a large room, and he won't work. He won't take any orders from anyone. So the subjugation of the Indian military leadership by the political masters is so bad. It's pathetic. It's like when I saw it first as even a
Is it a
20-year-old.
different policy, or is this just became institutional over time?
It was a policy in the beginning. In the beginning, Nehru's policy, army was very powerful. When, as your father experienced, they were cut for the same cloth. Okay, they were cut from the same cloth, and there was no difference in their training, their courage, their bravery, their professionalism. But over a period of time, Nehru started, what I am told is that Nehru started kind of first taking out the Punjabi officers from the top leadership because he was scared of these guys were going to do some coup or whatever. And then what I witnessed when I was the officer was that the officers in the higher ranks were chosen for plain compliant, like they are totally subservient, like everywhere it is always like you have to kind of suck up, but the amount of like sucking up they had to do to the civilian establishment was like honestly like degrading. And and it have been institutionalized in India. The real power is with the IAS, the IPS, and the IFS. Look at this whole press briefings that India did. Just take this, and that's why I'm looking at these briefings. And I was telling people that these press briefings will tell you who controls the roost here. Okay, in the beginning, you saw Vikram Misri, who was the India's foreign secretary, come to brief with two lady officers on his side, a colonel from a signals arm, another wing commander from the Air Force. These ladies were given a pre-read script. They were not writing that script.
Ajit, sorry to interrupt. Tell him that they police beat a serving colonel 2 months ago in Patiala from
Yeah.
the army, and nothing would happen.
No, no, Lalpaji, that's fine. We are discussing a deeper point. Okay, so we'll go there. So on that, Miss Anurpaji. So now what happened was that briefing went on for many days. You know why the Mr. Mishri was coming with these two showpieces on his side? Because he thought that we have so much edge, it's going to be a grand success. And the moment it became a grand failure, you don't see him. Who does he send? The four generals. Okay, so that gives you a message like, so, and this is just a very minor example, but it tells you the deep rot up going up there in the top echelons. Now add to that, when Modi came in, already the Indian army, over a period of time, due to systemic discrimination with of the Sikh population, the Sikhs were getting disenchanted with the idea and notion of India. This did not even happen till Kargil. Even till in Kargil, the Sikh regiments fought with lot of morale, lot of loyalty. The Gurkhas did the same. Every ethnic regiment did the same. But today, the things have really changed in last 25 years. It is not the same army. It is, and not even close to the army that your father knew. If he saw this, he won't make out that this is the same army. And in terms of their equipment, in terms of their morale, in terms of their professionalism, every year it has degraded, every second, every month it has degraded. And now what has happened with Modi coming in is Modi did a couple of things to destroy the Air Force. He destroyed the Air Force through first lack of purchase of all of this goes to Modi. When he forced the Air Force to buy, to give, force them to give operational clearance to Tejas, a totally failed aircraft. Air Force has rejected. They were already buying 126 Rafale. He nixed that deal in 2014 and said we are going to just get 36, and like he overruled everybody and said Tejas we are going to fly. Tejas will not fly. Tejas has a design flaw. Air Force has knows it. My seniors knew in 2004 Kaveri engine is a failure. We can never make an engine. And but then again, a lie was being told to the whole country. Same thing he did with the army by launching army. Indian Army's core strength is infantry. It can fight with even poor weapons. Look at the gun that Indian Army has in SAS. It is the worst rifle carried by any modern army across the world, and I'm saying it with a lot of responsibility. Show me any rifle which is
You're
worse
right
than
there.
this.
It jams a lot. It jams a lot, especially in dusty conditions.
It jams. It is worse. So think of it this way.
Accuracy is very poor.
Accuracy is poor. Not just accuracy. It jams. It's not reliable. What worse can I give you in an army and then an unreliable rifle? Then its ergonomics are so poor. It fires a 5.56. 5.56 is the one of the lighter bullets. And if you look at an AR-15 or like the what they call AM6 in the U.S. Army, the key benefit of it is that it is ergonomics because it's a small bullet. You can have a really ergonomic rifle which is easier to carry. But look at in SAS, it's way bulkier than even AK-47, firing a tiny bullet and still jams and have all kind of issues because of the corruption in the Indian ordnance factories. And that is because the Indian ordnance factories are a job giving structure for the civilian bureaucracy. It's not a merit driven thing at all, and it is not under the army. It is all under the civilian. And if you go back and look at World War II, any one of you who is a fond of buying vintage arms, Second World War, you will generally find Springfield and Enfield. And if you buy an Enfield 303, 90% of the time you will see made in India. And those rifles, even today, shoot like anything. Okay, and they're expensive.
I have a 303.
Yeah. So and they're such nice shooting rifles, but that quality of gun, India cannot make today. India cannot.
Okay, Ajit, first of all, just DM me your Gmail. I have a collection of about maybe 2,000 books on India-Pakistan history and one whole section on military history around the world. I'm sure you'd like to. These are all digital libraries. I'll be happy to share them with you. Now, you made a very interesting point. In Pakistan, we have a totally different debate. The civilians want to have more control over war ordnance factories, over Air Force decisions on armaments. Luckily, because of our relationship and when we switched to buying most of our hardware from China, the element of a corruption and two, the ability to, compare A against B and get a better deal is gone. We rely on the Chinese assessment of their armaments. So when they say the J-10 is a fifth generation superior aircraft, by and large, we go with it, right? Starting from the Bofors deal where the corruption and then the helicopters deal and all. So for me as a Pakistani, I find the debate quite interesting because in India, the army is fighting to get control over its own operations.
Correct.
In Pakistan, we are fighting to get control over our political destiny and let the army do their own thing. So there's
the difference is
conundrum both countries face.
yeah, no, but in India, it's worse because the army is not even fighting. The army has given in. It's totally planned. Okay, and it's pliant because of, I said, the change in the cultural
But I
mix of
have
the
a
officer cadre.
question from you or anyone else. Um, I personally think that before this conflict, Modi called all the chiefs of the Indian forces and he said, I'm leaving it to you to design the operational and tactics and blah, blah, blah. I think that was a red herring.
Yeah.
So if now that things haven't gone the way they expected,
Yeah.
they're going to become the scapegoats.
Correct.
I think so. I may be wrong.
No, no,
What do you think?
but that's eventually every time that happens. Like, so, the lowermost guy will be the scapegoat, and the lowermost is who? It's basically the defense forces and their heads. But this is a deeper problem.
I agree with you.
And Anwar Paji, but
I don't know about Harjeet, but I 100% agree with you.
yeah. But here is the deeper point. Okay.
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਪਾ ਦੇਗਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਕਿ ਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ
but here's the deeper point. This is on surface, okay, but what is the deeper undercurrent? The deeper undercurrent of people who understand how India was formed. The Indian entity was formed by the East India Company through the creation of Indian Army. It was the creation of the Indian Army, and it was the Indian Army which conquered all these territories and nations and formed this one whole called India. And it was not created out of like voluntary will of these nations. It was created by force, by sword, by conquest. And the core of that conquest was the Indian army. First, the Madras army was created, which conquered Bengal. After that, they created the Bengal army, which conquered Punjab. After that, they created the modern army, which we see today. After they disbanded the Bengal army, they also called it the new army, and which we are the inheritors of. And as the Indian army is weakened, its core structure is totally rotten and eaten away by the Indian system and the Indian establishment, you will see India as a state cannot survive. India as a state has been built by the Indian army and is held by the Indian army. And in last 20 years, the Indian army has been converted into a glorified police force. Look at their officers. The biggest achievement is, 500 of them, a whole unit is going and catching a poor Kashmiri boy. That's nothing. There's no courage. Nothing great to boast about it. It's an operation which is actually hurting your preparation or your ability to fight a real army in battle. And that is what happened.
I think Operation Blue Star hurt the Indian army the most.
That is where the slide started. You are absolutely right. Their fate was sealed. Their fate was sealed at that point in time. And and I think it was a historic opportunity. We'll talk about it, that probably the Pakistani side missed on that point in time. And that brings me to the other larger debate. Does the Pakistan establishment really want to unravel the Indian establishment? I don't think so. I think both don't want to do it. And while they fight at an operational level,
they want the status quo to remain.
Yeah.
On both sides, and they want it to be a functional status quo.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all. Yeah, that's right. And that is not good for the people of the subcontinent, because with the current power structure of Indian state, which centralized rule, trying to control everything centrally, is not good for anybody, including Pakistan, people of Bengal, people of Nepal, people of Sri Lanka, and surely not for the people of India. And also, in recent years, it has become clear to Canada it is also not good for the Western countries, because that deep fascist elements of the Indian state are not going to stop and be happy with just being there. They are now infiltrating the West. They are taking over the West, and they are gaining levels of influence which is harmful for the long run of the Western civilization or society, whatever we call it. With that, Anwar Paji, if you're fine, let's take X2. He's been raising his hand.
Is anyone? I'm sorry, I'm an old man, so I tend to talk too much.
No, but I do the same. I'm not still that old, but pretty old, and I have to stop doing these monologues. But it's been the conversation is good, going great. Yeah, go ahead, X2 Paji.
Thank you very much, Ajit. I just wanted to say hi to all my friends that are in the space here. So just to introduce myself, I'm associated with the Defense General of Pakistan for past 25 years, and I'm a corporate professional with experience in governance and corporate management. And I have 5 books that I have written in my career, uh, other than what I do in my corporate business. Okay.
Yeah.
Having said that, I just have a question for, and of course, also last but not least, I'm the co-governor of a think tank, TSI, the Thinkers Syndicate International, and we basically write any articles over there as well. So Colonel Makbul Sabi is my co-governor, that you know very well, Ajit Saab. Okay. Having said that, I just want to have a question and an observation, and I have a question for you, whoever want to talk about that. Okay, while seeing the topic of the space, Indian oppressor actually on the war, I have seen that, and I have seen the body of language of the Indian army generals. I believe they are. I think they are a 2-star general, I believe, right? I'm not sure they are a 3-star, at least a 2-star. So the question here is that after this, I will say that after this humiliating defeat in 96 hours of the war, do you think that Indian image as a power that they portray has been shattered? Do you think that what West and others, they think that India is a might or something, that has been gone into a limbo? Do you think that India, West, or anyone else will trust the Indian armed forces capacity and their posture as a force, as a regional force, is still there? This is a question that we need to ask, because this was the point. India was always encashing, not to the region, but also to the West, to the Russians, and to the Chinese as well. And West, basically, they are investing a lot into an idea that India might be a regional force, and they are the part of a Quad in the Asia Pacific and so on and so forth. But Baji, this war has changed, and I will say that quote unquote, this war has changed the regional and global tactical paradigm.
Yeah, no, it has. I think it's going to. It has geopolitical implications, wide ranging. I think it's going to impact the alignment in the current tussle that is ongoing with this multipolar world, or God knows what else. It's going to really impact the alignment, and tell you why. And maybe if you can just mute your mic, actually. Yeah, and I'll tell you why. In this is my understanding. I think in the American establishment, there was American establishment had learned that India is not going to give them economically anything. India is a graveyard of foreign investment. Their businesses have been kicked out, and with this kind of structure, they're not going to get anything economically. But they always thought, okay, at least we'll be able to use India as a member of Quad, whatever, as a military partner, on all kind of use it as a bulwark against all kind of geopolitical competition that they have. But I think that, and there was a portion of establishment which always used to sell India from that angle. I think that argument is also now blown out of proportion. The argument that India is a democracy and long-term ally and it shares, values with us, that was blown out of the water, or like nobody now trusts us after what happened with the assassination of the Sikh dissident in Canada, the Foreign Interference Commission report, and the way India reacted to when they were caught red-handed trying to murder Americans. So that element was taken out. So there were 3 pillars of their image. So that was that. The second was, hey, we are this big industry economy. Nobody believes that because they've been kicking American businesses out. The third was, okay, we are this military power, okay, that you don't want to ignore. And maybe being okay with us is going to help you. But now I don't think anybody takes Indian military as seriously after this. I think you guys have totally exposed them. And it will not be taken. It's not even a regional power, leave alone but Pakistan, like it really has brought up Pakistan's eminence. Like Pakistan is being going to be taken very seriously, in my view, um, and honestly, deservingly so. Not just from the military standpoint, but also the way the military conducted itself. Uh, so look, we were comparing their presentations, right? So not that the Pakistani armed side was not lying, but they were lying professionally. Okay, this is called information warfare, where you have 80% truth and you mix that 20% falsehood that you want to manipulate people with. That's what the generals they were doing. And but that is the profession, right? It's taught to them. But the Indian side has become totally unprofessional. Like their jingoism on the media, like the way their generals are behaving, like this is nothing. Like they're totally exposed.
And Paji, I have just one more point, and I will go. I will like some else's to talk as well. Just one thing. Okay, have you? And I just want to ask a general question here: is that after this myth is over now, the Indian Army in Abajaman has been over. To me, it is over actually. And see what was the body of language of the Indian armed personnel, and what are the body of language of Pakistani armed personnel. Having said that, India is cultivating a lot of terrorism, not only in Pakistan but other parts of the world as well. As you very well said, a killing of the Sikhs and a killing of their opponents across the globe now. Now, with this humiliating defeat of India, I will say not India, I will say any of India. I use always this word, any of India, not India, because it has to end one day. So India is cultivating a lot of separatist movements inside Pakistan. India also support Armenia against Azerbaijan, and India is supporting Greece against Turkey. Okay, because India is targeting every uh, government and culture who is the friend of Pakistan. So Pakistan has BLA, this Baloch Liberation Army, and this TTP, which is basically a Taliban terrorist. India has heavily invested in these two. Today's news is that Kurdistan Workers' Party, their terrorist group that was doing terror activities in Turkey and Syria, they have finally surrendered to Turkey, knowing that Turkey has given them a lot of blow. So with this Indian defeat, do you think where these guys are staying now, PLA and TTP, because their main power source was India? So do you think that
Sure,
they
sure.
have?
So let me
Yes,
let me
I'm
let
sorry,
me
you were my
yeah,
question.
let me take a slightly deeper dig at this. Okay, because if I take a dig at only this side is supporting terrorism, other side is supporting terrorism, I think it's a faulty way of looking at things. It's a very Western way of looking at things, and it misses the nuance and the deeper aspect of this conflict. And because what is eventually happening, so what is, even to define what is terrorism, is, are the Kashmiri militants trying to fight for self-determination terrorists? I would say so. Are the Baloch dissidents, if they are really fighting for this right to self-determination, are they terrorists? I won't say so. Same way. So the fact is that the deeper problem that is engulfing this subcontinent is, and the West will never come us and help us understand this, because why would they, unless they have any interest? It's for the people of the subcontinent, us, you, me, people of our age, to really, really contemplate why the subcontinent is in this situation. Why is India, the Indian establishment, going to the extent of killing its own people in Pahalgam and creating this ruckus or this situation where they heat up the border? You guys know they have no intention of a full fledged war. You know they are doing it to do a couple of things, which is consolidate their Hindu nationhood, wean away the Sikh population from the idea of being friendly with the Leda Punjab, and also to to take international pressure away from them, that that they were experiencing for cross national repression and terrorism that they indulge in. And it is not that the Pakistani establishment could be relatively better, but it's not also kind of covered with glory on all these aspects. So the fact is that due to this Indian, I call it a theocratic Indian state that we have created, which is we have not created, which are the creation of the British. This whole subcontinent is now in a situation of conflict, is in a situation of misery, poverty, and a cycle which it cannot break unless we really reimagine ourselves. When the British were leaving, they knew that they had subjugated 29 nations and they wanted to give back. If I have to give them that much, their concept was the United States of India, that all provinces will be federal and autonomous. And it was the same concept that Muhammad Ali Jinnah had when he gave the 14-point agenda. This whole idea of constructing nation states purely based upon religion was forced upon Jinnah, because once he realized, because same Muhammad Ali Jinnah was part of Congress. Once he realized that the Hindu Congress, the main idea is Hindu hegemony, Hindu Rashtra, then what is the tactical position you can take to safeguard yourself, to gather your people around you? You have to go to the religious dimension and say, hey, Muslims, you are in danger. And that's factually true. So, if people had no problem initially with Congress. If Congress had agreed to the idea that all the people, irrespective of their religion, caste, color, creed, should have safeguards and be treated as equal citizens. But the core, if you read, the Congress was a child of Karamchand Gandhi. And if you read Karamchand Gandhi, his sole aim in life, he never said his aim in life was to throw the British away. He never said his aim in life was non-violence. If you read him, he said his aim in life is to bring back Varna Ashram Dharma. He was a theocratic leader and he imagined a theocratic state based upon Varna Ashram Dharma. In that scenario, the Muslim cannot be an equal citizen. So once you push the Muslim out, at least you push some part of your problem out, you are left with another part that you want to assimilate and convert it into one single whole. So the whole project of the Indian state is to convert it into a nation, people with same values, same culture, and same system of thinking. That's why their whole focus is internal. Their focus is not China. Their focus is how to make India a nation. Which nation? The Bharat nation from mythology. So they will impose Hindi on people. They will impose one law. They want to homogenize the subcontinent to create a fake nation out of it called India, which does not exist. There is no language called Indian. There is no culture called Indian. There is no cuisine called Indian. There is no value system called Indian. How is a Tamilian and a Sikh having the same value? Are we? No. How is a Naga and a Tamilian the same? No. So this is the whole project. It is the same project that Hitler had for Europe. The only Hitler said we need unity in we need unity in political action because we have racial unity. Okay, we need political unity because we have racial unity. Here, the idea is that we need political unity in political action because we have civilizational unity. Now, this whole civilizational unity is also a very faulty construct. It is not real. It is based upon mythology. The moment you take an approach and you change your system of thinking and you say, hey, there are 29 nations here. Tamils are a nation. Bengalis are a nation. Punjabis are a nation. Sindhis are a nation. Kashmiris are a nation. And there is no centralized power. You will see the problem goes off. A Tamilian goes back to being a Tamilian. A Bengali goes back to be a Bengali. Today, a Tamilian is standing with an AK-47 outside the house of a Kashmiri. He has no, if this Indian state was not there, that Tamilian will never make that effort to go and outside the house of a Kashmiri with an AK-47. He has no interest. He wants a Kashmiri to be Kashmiri. He wants to be left alone with his people, his culture that he can grow and be happy with. But this concept of Indian state brainwashes them and says, no, there is something called India. There is something called Hindu Rashtra. Tamilian, go ahead and you have to fight this. Go and control this Kashmiri. And that is why this whole very unnatural behaviors are happening in this subcontinent. A Sikh has no interest in going and standing outside the Naga villages with an AK-47 and forcing them to do the bidding of the Indian state. We have no interest. है किसी पंजाबी का इंटरेस्ट कि नागालैंड ते जाके कब्जा कर लो, but just because the Indian state has that interest. So this is the problem. The problem, as I keep saying, was the idea of India, which forced the idea of Pakistan into being. The moment, if we can join hands, the Sikhs, the Lende Punjab wale, if we can join hands, and along with the Bengalis, along with the Tamilians, along with the Kashmiris, along with the Balochis, and put an end to the Indian state, this whole subcontinent will move to its natural boundaries and will be better than Europe in a matter of 10 years. Because that is the natural state of the subcontinent. And as I was saying in many things, today the Pakistani army is in a historic position to undo the wrong which got done in 1947. And now the question is, will it be able to really play that role? Will it be able to play the role of the liberator for all the nations? Will it be able to have? And I think it can't do it alone. I don't think you guys can do it alone. I think Sikhs have a role to play in it. That's why I am here. I tell the Sikhs, go and talk to Apne Lende Punjab. They grow that bond, grow that idea of the Punjabi in them. Let the Tamilians grow the idea of being Tamilian. Let the Bengalis grow the idea of being Bengali, because that's what they really are. Yes, we also have religion as aspect of our identity, but first what you need is first some core identity, natural base where you can live together, prosper, have trade, and the religion will grow on its own. So that is what I dream of. That is what as Sikhs we dream of, not just me. That is the value of the Khalsa Panth as being born in the house of Guru Nanak. That is my mission, and that is the mission of the collective spirit of the Sikhs. And for that, we are going to join hands with our brothers in Lenda Punjab, people like you, and we are going to work with you as equal partners in bringing peace and freedom to the subcontinent. ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ aim ਹੈ, ਖੁੱਲਾ ਆ, ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤੇ that's what we believe in. ਐਨੀਵੇਜ਼ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੋਨੋਲੌਗ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਨਵੇਂ. ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ had his hand raised up. Professor, sorry, because I went on for so long. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and Richie was up there. Now he went down.
Yeah, I think Rich also went down. Yeah.
You do have another hand up raised. Dulabati.
Yeah, Dulabati, go ahead.
Harjeet, thank you, Harjeet Baji. Thanks for giving me the mic. I just had a question, actually two questions. First was I'm kind of really curious about that CNN article. I think there was other articles too where it said there were some alarming intelligence which prompted J.D. Vance and the U.S. to contact Indian leadership and tell them that they need to have some kind of a ceasefire negotiator as soon as possible. And still trying to figure out what that alarming intelligence could be. My kind of view is that it was, and I was reading this analyst, so it's not my view. That what this person was saying was that Pakistan's electronic warfare was so kind of disruptive to the Indians' offense that it was so disruptive that their nuclear deterrent, India's nuclear deterrent, was kind of coming into question, where it was even be possible for them to use their nuclear deterrent in case they would have to, because of the electronic warfare that Pakistan waged against their comms and other aspects, like their satellites and stuff. So that was that analyst view. I'm not sure exactly if that's clear. I'm just wanted to ask if anybody in the panel has any views. And the second question was actually a little bit more off topic, was actually to Mr. Anwar Sher. He just mentioned something that his dad used to. He actually fought in Burma for the Royal British Indian Army, and just wanted to ask, like, what regiment or what? Because my grandfather also fought and for the Royal British Indian Army in Burma, and I'd always been trying to. I never had got to talk to him about that, and I was wondering, like, if he has, like, he knows, like, the company, the regiment. I just wanted to, like, look that up myself to see if I can find what my grandfather used to do there. I'm not sure if he will be able to share that. That would be great.
I'd be happy to share that. He was in the 1/18 Baluch British. It was known as 1/18. And then after 1947, that battalion was reformed as 11 Baluch. They fought in the Arakan area, and it was a counter-offensive force against the Japanese. He fought there, I think, for 2 years. And it was jungle warfare, of course.
Yeah, that's kind of like what my father tells me when he was talking to his father, like my grandfather. He passed away. I couldn't talk to him. I wasn't old enough, but yeah, he explains the same thing. It was jungle warfare, but I was thinking maybe I could find a link. But I think his but I'm not really familiar with military matters. But I think his regiment or company was raised from Punjab, like from like a Narowal area. So maybe
that
not.
Must have been the 1/16.
1/16. Okay, that actually helps.
DM me and I'll refer you to some sites where there is the British Indian Army formations in Burma. I can refer you to those. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have too many speakers. Can you guys please keep it short? And Harjeet, you wanna answer the speculative question, like he's talking about whether there was a nuclear or a electronic warfare by Pakistan, which led to GD Vance interference.
Yeah, this is my kind of assessment and all speculation. Like maybe the Pakistani analysts generally tend to know more what happened. This is my understanding what might have happened. So it was very clear that the Indians threw in the towel first. In their press conference, they came in, made an offer that, hey, we will not retaliate if Pakistan also doesn't do so. And it is after that that they reached out, or even before that, they had reached out to the Americans and say, hey, help negotiate a truce. And the Indians are very good at making up excuses why they are approaching and why they want the ceasefire. So they are very good with words and excuses and reasons. They might have figured out some reason. But what from the Pakistani side, what I'm hearing from different social media main handles is it was their threat to hit the India's as the next escalation on the escalation ladder. They had threatened that they were going to hit the economic targets of the Indian regime, which includes the Jamnagar refinery. That's one of the biggest refineries India has, probably also the biggest across the world, and the other, economic targets of Adani and Ambani's, which some analysts are saying kind of forced the India to throw in the towel. I think it's more. I think the India would have thrown in the towel as such. I think because their objective was not a military win. Their objective was to create enough heat, and then they have enough social media within their country, enough censorship, enough of the jingoistic IT cell to then brainwash 1.5 billion people into thinking that we had a victory, even if they had a defeat. We saw that in Balakot. Like no objective analyst would say it's any kind of a victory for India, but they are still celebrating Balakot as if a victory, and they would do that in this case as well. So why kind of fight an actual war and get your refineries blown up when that's not the objective?
Can I add just one?
Hanji, Malik Bhaji, go ahead.
Actually, Dullah Parit, whatever he said is some sort of truth in it, because it was Modi who actually asked Trump to mediate. It was not Pakistan. So basically, there was something behind the scene was going on. So basically, what we have been seeing, everybody, that night when nobody went to sleep, and we were witnessing that there was a massive cyber attack on their command and control system. And which includes also nuclear command and control system as well. And we heard some of the information that until today, some of their operations are not still up and running. So that was the problem. They thought that if their system is collapsed, it might be a next escalation, maybe a next level. So that's why they asked Trump to intervene. This is what I heard. I don't know.
Okay, Richie, then we go to Salad Amigo. Richie, go ahead.
Yeah, one reason Professor's not here is he's at work. He was on break. And two, my question was, Harjeet Singh Ji, can you tell us how the Indian military and army has degraded after Operation Blue Star, and how the Sikhs have been taken away from positions of power within the military because of fear that someday that the Sikhs in the military may take over the central government in a coup, maybe?
Yeah. So I think it was already happening before even the Blue Star. The Indian state never trusted the Sikhs fully. Okay, and that came out fully like in full flow in 1984. So 1984 Operation Blue Star and especially the mutiny that happened gave them a good excuse to start kind of not posting Sikh officers in Sikh regiments, and also to start putting lot of what you start degrading the character of the or the actual the religious training in the Sikh regiment. So if you go to the Sikh regiments, they are religion based, the only religion based regiments that the Indian army has. And when you go in there, like they had their very strong traditions. You had to be baptized, you had to be a khalsa, you cannot cut your hair, and you had to do nitnem. So what they did was they started kind of try to started kind of getting like tinkering out at that kind of character of the regiment. And then yeah, and they're diluting it. Yeah, that's the right word. And they diluted it by first putting a lot of Hindu officers there, and so they will always make sure that the Sikh officer segment is very minor, like a minority of the overall officer cadre. You put. I remember when I was first an army cadet, so before I shifted to Air Force, and when I was training, they asked you a choice. Okay, what will you take as an arm? And I said infantry. Said what regiment? Sikh regiment. Said you can never get Sikh regiment because you're a Sikh. I said okay, fine. So that was the first time I learned that that's a policy. And so that and I think and after that, so there was the systemic with the so the core, because the as I said, these regiments are ethnic and religion based, so they get their motivation out of that. So you have Rajput regiment, they're fighting for the Tiranga, but it's small element of it, they're fighting for the honor of their regiment. And their regimentation, that's what they mean, regimentation. And so that Pulton and its core values are very important, and they started tinkering with that on the Sikh regiment side after Blue Star. And that process has been slowly going on. So today when you look at the Sikh regiment, you will see like boys who have shorn hairs, daadiyan kattiyan hoiyan ne. You will see them, they have started wearing caps, they've started wearing all kind of stuff. And maybe many of them they've been deprived of the true Khalsa character that was the core of the Sikh regiment. And then the officer cadre, and it's primarily driven by the officers, because once the officers are Hindu and who don't understand what the Khalsa brotherhood is all about, those are the values which start percolating down, right? So that's one. Then the other side is overall the Sikhs, and this was going on gradually, but then in recent past, especially from 2014 onwards, I think the Sikh collective consciousness has kind of decided that we have nothing to do with India. And there are multiple reasons for that. One is the economicide. I talk about the way the water is being stolen from the three rivers, and the absolute last drops of water, underground water, that are left in Punjab. And we are going to face a famine in next 5 years. And people know it subconsciously. Okay, people live there, they know what's going to happen in next 5 years. So they see the writing on the wall. So Punjab is getting sparsely populated. Every Sikh is moving out. Serving the army is the last thing on their mind. The first mind is escape. And demographic change is going on in a big way, with India then kind of bringing in a lot of these non-Punjabis into Punjab. So that's what I say. Like, we Sikhs have 5 years left to save our homeland, because there's going to be disaster out there, and that disaster is not going to just be limited to East Punjab. I think it will impact Pakistan as well. That's why I say they have a big stake in this.
And I want to add on to this. Only one elite class, or should you say caste, enjoy the whole power in India. That's a Brahmin class. Every higher position, doesn't matter in justice, transport, or defense, anywhere, only you will see a high Brahmin on the top of that. Not only Sikhs were taken out of the higher positions after 1984, they even destroyed all the Sikh businesses across the India, whether it was in Calcutta or Mumbai, because they were funding the movements or they were helping the Sikhs. So not only the power was taken out of the justice system or the judiciary system, but even the businesses of the Sikh people were also destroyed all over the India after 1984.
And one last thing, a small question and an answer. What was the percentage of the Punjabi Sikhs in the Indian military when India was formed? And what percentage is it now, percentage-wise? Numbers in the military. That'll be all I'm done for today with questions.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, Rich, but that's a very good question. I'm going to do that math and get back to you. I'm going to take that item. Like, it has reduced a lot. We just know that it has reduced a lot. How much? I think that quantification we have not done. And well, the way they have done it is they converted many of the pure Sikh regiments first into mixed regiments. So many of the Sikh regiments, when they were disbanded, they were converted into mechanized infantry and were made mix into armored regiments, and they were made mix. Many of the other regiments used to be purely Sikh. They like the SAP, the some engineering regiments and all, and now they're saying, okay, why should it only be Sikh? So they now recruit from all over India. So that has been one dilution, and then the Sikh regiment itself, the dilution is what I talked about. And but I can get you that number. I can. They don't publish that number, because they don't publish you. They won't tell you what is the uh, and you get all these numbers before when the British were there. British were very transparent. They used to publish every single data point. And the moment like the British left, we had this iron curtain come down. No transparency on anything.
Raji, the figures are there. In First World War, more than 20% of the soldiers were Sikh soldiers, even though they made only 2% of the population. So that's First World War. It's just in front of me. Just Google that. But yeah, the numbers can be easily obtained.
Yeah. No, but you have to, there's the catch. Like you have to look at what percentage of the fighting element. So generally, like, and I'll give you an anecdote, right? So if you read Lord Simon, he wrote it in the Simon Commission. If you read the Simon Commission report, and he says that that the people kind of, the Hindus put an allegation on us that we don't hire Hindus into the army, and we are always hiring these warrior castes like Punjabi Muslims and Sikhs. But then he kind of gives a very interesting data point. He said, whenever there is a world war and an emergency, we open up recruitment for anybody. Anybody can join any arm, whether it's fighting, non-fighting. And then he gives an interesting anecdote. He compares that in First World War, when they opened up recruitment, they were looking for volunteers. They opened up recruitment. He compares the population of Punjab and Bengal and how many people were hired in each of these. So in Punjab, the Punjab.
Question.
Hanji.
Sorry to interrupt you. As we have a Punjab regiment in Pakistan, so in British India, there was a Punjab regiment at that moment of time, right? We have some of the regiments, battalions which are we have derived from the British era. So do you have a Punjab regiment as well, apart from the Sikh regiment over there?
Hanji. There's a Punjab regiment. There is a Sikh regiment. There is a Sikh light infantry, and these are the three major.
I want to continue on the point. Please hold on. I want you to continue on the numbers you were telling. I want to finish that point. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
When they did the counting from Punjab and Bengal.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I want to hear this.
Yeah. So no, but everybody should hear, because so he says at that point in time, the population of Punjab was almost double, slightly less than double of Punjab. Okay, Bengal's population. But the number of recruits who applied, volunteered for the fighting element of the infantry or artillery, which is the fighting arm, from Punjab was somewhere around 400,000. Okay, 350,000 something. I think that number. You know how many people volunteered from Bengal to be in the fighting element in infantry? 4,572. Okay, so he quotes that data. Okay, then he shows how many people volunteered from Punjab for non-fighting arms and how many people volunteered from Bengal for non-fighting arm, and it was the reverse. Okay, so he showed that hey, it is not us who are discriminating and hiring more from Punjab. Like, you guys don't want to fight, and you guys want a job, and the soldier's job is not to just carry your. It's a profession which demands a different attitude, and when it comes to that, you guys just lack it. And so he was showing it with data. It's very interesting.
You're absolutely spot on this. My grandfather served in Second World War. He was in Royal Signals. He was a young officer. And I still remember telling us, when he used to tell us the stories, they said that nearly 60% of the force, or maybe 70% of the force fighting in Burma was Punjabi, either Sikhs or Muslims.
No, and what interesting was, the guys they were fighting were also Punjabi. So the Punjabis were fighting Punjabis there as well. Many of them defected to this whole called INA, the Japanese as well. But it was very interesting war that happened there.
Yeah. And I have a question for anybody from the Pakistan side, because I'm hearing a lot of news in the media. I just want to confirm it, whether there is anything hit by Indian or the Morkan base or any nuclear facility in Pakistan. If anybody has a knowledge, please share with us. Thank you. Go ahead, Salim.
Sorry, I don't live in Pakistan. That's a total I just wanted to say something. Then I'll go. I was in Canada for a few years and then came back to UK. But the funny thing is, आज तक तुसां लोगों ने साउथ अफ्रीकन्स ਨੂੰ ਪਨਾਹ ਦੇਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ।
ਸਾਊਥ ਅਫਰੀਕਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ?
ਦੇਖਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਰਿਫਿਊਜੀ ਲੈਣੇ ਅਫਰੀਕਨਸ ਟਰੰਪ ਨੇ ਐਕਸਲਰੇਟਡ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤੇ।
ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ।
Anyway, Mr. Malik, we were saying thing about the nuclear.
I said that it's a total fake news, coming from the Godi media. There's nothing happened such way. You can imagine if any kind of incident happened in any nuclear facility, there must be a radiation, right? So it's like it's not like a joke, and there are multiple layers of security and multiple layer of defense system around that. So it's not easy to hit that facility.
Yeah, the reason for this is because I remember when J.D. Vance said alarming intelligence, right? So that's why it kind of get connected with that. That's why people are speculating.
No, it's more of a Indian air defense system which was totally paralyzed, and they have that have thoughts in their mind that it might be something behind going on it.
So it got paralyzed or it got hacked by Pakistan.
But by the massive cyber attack. So that's why the Indian pilots were not totally disconnected from their bases and their command and control centers. They were confused. So that was the reason, because and they want immediate ceasefire because they were not comprehending that what is going next. Because this conflict was still going on a very massive level. Pakistan response was, by the way, it was massive. It was massive. So it dangerously going on. This situation could lead to even disaster or something like that. So that's why they asked Trump to intervene, I would say.
And my last question before we go to the another speaker, and people are saying, I saw on social media and a couple of news channels. I'm not saying it's confirmed whether China gave you PL-15E. Like some of the PL-15E and some of them they are PL-15, right? The 15 is for them. The China use them for their domestic use and export model. Did Pakistan get the China models like the PL-15?
Yes, everybody knows that China gave them the version that they use on their own planes, which is 15E.
So export plus the domestic version. Both.
No. Some of the wreckage they found in India, it clearly says that some of the pieces of that missile is 15E written on it. Yes, some of the picture you can see on even Indian media as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਫਰੀडम ਭਾਜੀ ਰਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਨੇ। I think it's very helpful.
Trying to pick up Professor. Maybe you gotta go out and then come back in. I'm trying to pick you up, but it's not happening. And I had another question. Who was the speaker before me? I will wait for him.
Okay, while we wait for more questions, this is what I want to. I think it was an interesting point Amnder Paji was raising. Why the Indian armed forces are so far behind. And what I routinely kind of hear when I talk to our Pakistani brothers, they have they have this nostalgia, okay, because they have seen Kargil.
As Arjit earlier mentioned a while ago, I'm in your space for like quite a time now. You raised a point that 50%, I believe, is the civilian working in their defense department. So, what is the procurement system? Procurement system is done by the civilian or by the military itself. That what is their demands? What kind of weapons they want? What are the threats they are facing? These kind of analysis are who actually work on that.
It's all Paji civilians, okay. The so what they have done is they have given some level of like up to this much money the army commander can spend, and it's very little. That's the money that he just needs for his day to day like running of the operations, okay. So because even to maintain control over the army, what the Indian state has done is the Babus, they have very cleverly said that you are never going to have your own finance department. So the army does not have its own finance function. They don't pay like the payroll, everything is has to be always the civilian. So the civilian controls the purse from the bottom, like from the unit. In the unit, the person who is going to pay the pay is a civilian. Okay. So if I remember correctly, when I was getting commissioned, I was not getting commissioned. I was in the I had joined as an army cadet. Okay. So and then you were supposed to get your stipend. And then they told me, okay, I said, okay, when I'm going to get my stipend? They said, oh, it will come after 6 months. And then I said, okay, no, it might come after 3 months. So what does that mean? Like, it's not a fixed pay date that I'll get it. We never know what these civilians do. Like, even their pay is not guaranteed it will come on time. That's the state of the Indian Army. Air Force is not like that. Air Force has its own finance wing and everything, but Air Force is not a threat. So, to any in terms of procurement, they have a very convoluted mechanism to maintain control. So what they do is they say, so the army guys can keep proposing. They'll keep proposing, but the final decision will all be top down from the babus. They won't even consult the army guy.
Okay, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Stop.
Okay, and so I was kind of hinting at. I want to cover that point. Like, why is the Indian army so far behind? One, as I said, is the reason is that their lack of and in people who are coming from the Pakistani system, they don't understand this because they have never experienced anything like that. What you guys are experienced is something on the opposite. Okay. And so you and for you that's a good thing from a theoretical perspective that hey, we are on this other extreme, so it's maybe better, the Indian system is better. But what you don't realize is that the Indian system is the extreme. You want a balance, like you want some bare minimum operational and financial autonomy so that people can run their organizations, that the Indian army generals don't have. And then on top of it, and that's where I was speculating a couple of years back, after Modi came in, that we have a good chance of a coup happening in India now. And the reason is this: Modi has put everybody on the high horse of I am going to give you Hindu Rashtra. The reality is India is already a Hindu Rashtra. Like what else is a Hindu Rashtra? Like they have the picture of Manu right in the parliament. All 99.99% of MPs are Hindus. They can do anything that they want, and for the last 75 years, but it's a failure. So now Modi has eventually people will ask, okay, Hindu Rashtra, so that my life gets better. So he will not be able to give good jobs, good economy because of this whole centralization philosophy. And that's what's happening to the Indian economy, has basically turned turtle. The jobs are going away. So what he's giving to more and more, he's giving to the young people is this Hindu Rashtra. So they all are gathered, young folks are gathered, they are given drugs, and they all dance outside a mosque. 100,000 youth, unemployed youth, dancing outside a mosque, chanting Jai Shri Ram, like the. And then their other activity is they are all put on the. They have hired a digital army. Okay, I was surprised by the scale of the digital army of India. Washington Post did an investigative article where they actually got a couple of people infiltrating these IT cells. And then they calculated how many people are involved who are working on behalf of the Indian state as part of this quote unquote IT cell. You won't believe the number is in mind boggling. The number is in excess of crores. That's not the employment that all of it's in, and they're paid. Okay.
They gave the numbers for one center, it was 400,000, and there are multiple centers there.
Yes, not everybody is paid, but a good portion is also paid. So half of they this is what they are putting their unemployed youth on. And so eventually what's going to happen? What Modi has done is, till before Modi, the generals were chosen based upon incompetence and pliance, how pliant they are to the civilian establishment. He has added another dimension to it, which is ideological. So he is now hiring generals who are also ideologically aligned with the concept of Hindu Rashtra. But what does it actually conceptually means? It's nothing. It's all bunkum. But they, in their mind, Hindu Rashtra, Varnashram, where they can go and khadkau talliyan, and they can stand outside a mosque and demand the demolition. That is the Hindu Rashtra basically. It's hate. These ideologically aligned generals. Now, when does a coup happen? A coup happens when the chief cannot do a coup on his own. When he knows that his immediate subordinates, who are the corps commander, most powerful people there, are going to support him and they are one mind with him, and he can trust them. And all of them are of the same opinion that something needs to be done to help the country. So, because Modi is not going to deliver, it cannot deliver, the country is going to go in chaos. And when slight chaos it goes into, who will people look up to bring Hindu Rashtra back? It is army. And the chief will have all the four legs. The corps commanders will be ideologically aligned. They'll all be Brahmins. And India is ripe for a military coup. Now it's a matter of time when that happens.
And there's a major shift when Modi came to power. Like, you can look at their foreign policies. You can see clearly what were the foreign policies before Modi came in power and after Modi. But actually Modi thought like, we are better, we are more intelligent. Not only that, if you look at there's a deep state for every country, right? And there was an older think tanks who were following their whatever their Hindutva philosophy or their Brahminical philosophy, which was old, like whatever they're following from last 1,000 years. But when Modi came into power, he shifted those people out of those policy making groups, right? And not only that, he did a bigger blunder. Instead of leaving the deep state out of the businessman, he put some of the members from Adani and Ambani group, and now they are the decision makers in the Indian deep state, which is a big, like a blunder by any country. So right now, even you look at their think tanks, they are the younger generation of IPS, IAFS, whatever, the retired officers, right? But they are so radicalized and so corrupted, they can't even think beyond like their money, like they can't think beyond money. So that's another big thing which is affecting them badly, which is going to be the main reason for India to split into maybe 10, 15 different states. Go ahead, Dullah.
Hey, I just wanted to, I know Harjit Paji just mentioned the IT cell, and just wanted to like add a little layer to it. I'm not sure if anybody remembers or familiar with the US politics. So right after Trump's victory, he announced some kind of a H1B policy, and Elon Musk was also favorable to that. And then a lot of the big influencers and accounts who were supporters of Trump, but they were very critical of the H1B policy. So a lot of these people who were critical, and they actually they posted their criticism of it on Twitter. A lot of those accounts were attacked and mass reported by these IT cells, and a lot of these like big influencers or accounts who are like Trump supporters, like really big supporters, they got their accounts banned or restricted. So they were actually even kind of like leveraging their influence on like on U.S. politics, and then what the U.S. politics or the U.S. like internal affairs or foreign policy is.
You bring us such a beautiful point. Okay, so the fact is that I don't think the American establishment, maybe it has now started, at least in collective, couple of years back, they did not realize that India is an enemy state, and they thought India is something they can use, at best an ally, at worst something they can use. But what they underestimated is that the lethality of the Indian ideology. That India is, they don't understand it's a fascist ideology, which is gradually penetrating their society with an aim to take over America and Canada from inside. And we saw that what happened in Canada when Justin Trudeau stood up and told his country that, hey, Canada, we are under attack. It's Indians who are killing Canadian citizens on our soil. There was no outrage. No politicians could speak against India. And India, through its influence in Canada, put Justin Trudeau on the back foot. That's the level of influence they have. And they act as one mind, and they have infiltrated every segment of Canadian and American society, whether it's education, whether it is finance, whether it is tech. These are the most powerful segments of any society, and they are using it to the max. Like in Twitter, there was a whistleblower. There was a Senate hearing just before Elon took over Twitter. The Senate called Jack Dorsey, the previous owner, and as part of that, his team, for a Senate hearing. And part of that Senate hearing was Peter Mudge. Peter Mudge was a guy hired by Jack Dorsey to check data security within Twitter and privacy. And Peter Mudge became a whistleblower, and he gave a stunning testimony in Senate. As per him, Indian government blackmailed Twitter to hire raw intelligence officials into the Twitter headquarters in Delhi. Okay, they basically arm twisted Twitter that if you're not going to hire them, then we are going to not let you run an office here. We're going to kick Twitter out of here. So the who was that Agarwal guy, who was the CEO? He relented. Again, another Indian, and then he said they asked for more, not just two. And then when he raised the question with Agarwal that, hey, they're asking for more intelligence. So Agarwal, you know what answer he gave? He said, once we have hired two, what does it matter? We can hire as many. So the Twitter headquarters is teaming with paid R&AW intelligence agents in Delhi and maybe in California as well. But not just that. What about the unpaid portion? How many of these Indian engineers who are working for Twitter are willing to do the bidding of the R&AW agency? I bet 50% of them. So Twitter is gone. Twitter is not controlled by Elon. Twitter is controlled by Modi and his army. So is Facebook. So is YouTube. They also arm twisted Apple. There's a very nice article that came from Washington Post on how India blackmailed Apple into kind of letting India run that Pegasus software on certain clients. So India is not only suppressing its own minorities, conducting a genocide there, troubling its neighbors. India is now causing global security issues. And look at all this immigration issue that is ongoing in the West, in UK, in Canada, in America. Excessive immigration, and rightfully so. Too many immigrants. Where are they coming from? Just look at those immigrants. Where are they coming from? All are from India. And India is the only unique regime across the world which is encouraging its people to go to America. Like they're saying, take our best people away because they are the strategic assets or infiltrators of the Indian state. So I think India, it's kind of the writing is on the wall. The Indian state has become an enemy of too many people internally and externally, and its time has ended. It's time for the world to realize what is India. And
not only that, Harjeet, doesn't matter wherever Indians go, their loyalty lies to their country. They can never be loyal to US or Canada where they live. Just look in last 2 years, how much data they leaked from NASA. And last year when Ukraine was fighting with Russia, they leaked the plans for the stealth plane. And now they are supplying drugs. Like, look at whatever the worst things happening to America, it's all getting connected to India. And if you Google, you will see Elon Musk sued India over censorship in March this year. Just go Google it. Like, everything is getting anything who stands up again in Indian government, the first thing that you're a terrorist. Like, you stand up against them, they're terrorists. But they are the victims always. Doesn't matter they kill 1,000 people in Pakistan, Kashmir, doesn't matter. They are always the victims. Like, this is stupid. It's changing now. They gotta realize sooner or later they gotta have their normal head on their bodies. Nobody's dumb anymore. And in today's world, everybody sees like India is losing very fast. Like their career going down. Okay, Angry Bird.
Yeah, just one sec, one sec. I'm going to stop my. Badhiya, but I'm going to stop my live stream. I think live stream has been going on. Our discussion has moved from the press conference and the press briefing to other topics. So I'm going to end the live stream.
Arjit Baji, I have one more question.
No, but this is going to, the space will run. Just the live stream will run.
Yeah,
the space, we're going to keep
just
the.
answer me one question.
Yeah,
Just
I'm going
one
to, no, just hold on. Let me end the live
Can I
stream.
add something? Are you gonna add something?
Hey, guys, yeah, all of you will get the time. The space is not stopping. Just the Twitter live stream is ending. Okay. No, I don't take questions there. So all of you will continue the space for some time. We'll take all the questions. Let me just tell my live stream audience that I'm ending the live stream. Okay, the live stream is ending.